Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to El Pocho Hour. I'm your host, Noel OG del Rancho. Today we have a very special show. We're calling it the Dominican Pocho Hour because we have a handful of Dominican guests here, really to share with us some of their experience, their view of what it is to be Dominican, experiences on the island, and experiences obviously in New York or the Eastern Seaboard, where most Dominican pochos find themselves. The purpose of the conversation is to, introduce to us, educate us, really, because, for me personally, growing up as a Nicaraguan in LA, I didn't really have many Dominicans to run into. I think all I know about the Dominican Republic and my experience growing up is merengue and bachata music, which was always at all the parties. I remember el baile del perrito as a little kid. That was the jam. But beyond that, I don't really know. I mean, I did live in New York for a little bit. So I did, I would eat at a Dominican spot every day. I'd get my hair cut by a Dominican, but it's not like it didn't go too deep. I didn't live there that long. So why don't we start off by introducing ourselves? Alex, why don't you go first?
Sure. You guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
All right. So I'm originally from Queens, New York. My family's Dominican. I got other stuff in me from Spain and Lebanon. Mi familia son de Moca y Salcedo originalmente. Parte de mi familia de España, otra parte eran libanés, son árabe. And, growing up in New York, it was like when you're Dominican, they try to put you in a box. But then when I would go back to the Dominican Republic, like my family was on a certain social scale. Like eran miembros en Santo Domingo del Club Libanés Sirio Palestino, right in Malecón. They're members of that. Mm-hmm. So it's like growing up in New York, they thought everybody was from Washington Heights, and that's not the case. You know what I'm saying? Dominican Republic's like a country. There's different social scales. So
right.
People didn't even think I was Dominican because I'm light skinned. Like, oh, tú te pareces blanquito. And I'm like, well, sí, hay Dominicano blanco. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it was kind of like I'm Dominican, but like out by certain ignorant people, I was not considered Dominican. But I would go back to DR every summer. They used to send me back to DR, like this is in the 90s when New York was bad, to stay out of trouble. So I got to experience both New York and the Dominican Republic. And let me tell you, it was night and day. You know what I'm saying? And for people who from New York and the Dominican Republic don't know what I mean by that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's really interesting. Yeah, bringing it. I see that same dynamic with in the Southwest, where everybody assumes that if you're, the stereotype is if you're Hispanic, then you're like some peasant farmer who lost his farm, and like in the edges of Mexico. But it's like, it's like you said, there's a whole segment of people. It's different classes, different backgrounds that really make up a nation. It's not just one individual class or one individual profession. Why don't we go into Dominican Renaissance? Why don't you introduce yourself a bit?
So I'm known on YouTube as Dominican Renaissance, and I consider myself a Dominican nationalist. I was also raised in the U.S. and the Dominican Republic. I would spend a lot of time when I was younger. I would spend a lot of time there, and I was essentially like when I was younger, Spanish was my first language. I didn't even know English. I started to learn because there's this like one Puerto Rican kid that I hung out with when I was younger, and he spoke English and I spoke Spanish, and somehow we understood each other. So it's very complex. I grew up in New York City, right? Mm-hmm. So in New York City, there are Dominicans. Generally speaking, they're like in Dykeman, like Upper Manhattan, and like the Upper Bronx area. So, and they differ, like in the Upper Manhattan area and the Bronx area. But generally speaking, I was surrounded by Dominicans, like all the time, 24. Like, I lived in a bubble of Dominicans. Mm-hmm. That was my upbringing. So we saw, I've seen all kinds of Dominicans. So I know I can immediately tell when someone is Dominican and when they're not. And so there was this weird thing where like, if you were born here, you were Dominican and stuff, but there was also like Dominicans that would come from the Dominican Republic, and they would. There's kind of like a little, there's kind of like this little gap between us because of like the American culture.
You're talking about like the fresh off the boat Dominican versus the Dominican who's been here for a while. Gotcha.
Yeah. There's like a little, gap, but even with like other groups, the gap was like enormous. So especially with like, black people.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of these Dominicans that you see now, like these like influencers, right, from like New York and stuff, they're all like, oh, Black Lives Matter and stuff. But when I was younger, it was really not like that. It was like you guys over there, Dominicans over here, and like other Hispanics who want to like come along or whatever.
Right. Yeah. There's a lot of the Latinxers. Yeah. I mean, I've really seen the dichotomy between what we call Latinxers and pick-me's in the Dominicans. Like, it's like you could really see those two positions being taken there. Where and we'll expand on that on and throughout the conversation. But let me continue on here. Duarte, introduce yourself, bro.
Hey, Duarte 809. Well, I was born and raised in Dominican Republic, at least till I was like 15 years old. And of course, I always went back and yeah, and I'm from the north side. They call it El Cibao, Puerto Plata. It's you could call that's like the where the campos are. That's a stereotype, but there's a lot of truth to a lot of things about El Cibao, and I spend most of my life now in New York City.
How long have you been in New York City?
Oh man, this has been I gotta count that. Maybe 15 years.
15 years. Cool. Okay, and then Haniel, you're next.
I'm Haniel. I was born in Venezuela, but I was raised in Dominican Republic. I left Venezuela when I was 2 years old and spent basically my infancia and my early teenage years in Dominican Republic. My family, I mean, from my mother's side, we have one Dominican-born individual, and that's where my Dominican blood comes from. And yeah, we had a complicated relation with the island because we sort of every time a dictator, for example, my great grandfather, he was a sort of a Dominican landowner. Venezuela. He was born in Venezuela, but he left Dominican Republic just like me, to Dominican Republic just like me. And he became a landowner in Dominican Republic, but then he had some troubles with Trujillo. Then he went to Venezuela because as a Dominican exile, and that pretty much happened again with my mother in the case of going back to Dominican Republic.
Got it. And you're in Florida now?
Oh yeah, I live in Miami right now.
Cool. And then iMoney, you're the last Dominican on the list here. Say what's up.
Hey, what's up? Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Cool. So I was born in New York by Dominican parents. I would say first and second generation. And originally, my parents were from Santo Domingo, and my dad's from Hue. And after having my adolescence in New York, my parents decided to move to New Hampshire, and I was raised there. There's a small Dominican enclave outside of Boston in both New Hampshire and Massachusetts, but it was a much different experience than what it was like in New York City. Moreover, I'm living now in Connecticut, and I'm happy to, hear you guys' output on this panel.
Yeah. So let's dive in. I mean, for me, I'd like to start off with this. Like, how would you, explain what it is to be Dominican to, Hispanos that didn't grow up in New York, so we didn't get to rub shoulders with you guys as much. And you might assume that we have false assumptions. How would you break that down? Let me start with Dominican Renaissance. What do you think is, how would you explain yourself to us, and what do you think is the impression we have of you?
Dominican is very, some people differ on this, but in my opinion, the Tainos, first of all, I don't think the Tainos are considered Dominican. I think the Tainos were the people that inhabited the island, and then Dominicans came like from Spain, and they, because of diseases and stuff, a lot of the Tainos died, and conflicts between the Tainos and the Spaniards and the other European people. So, and then, over time they started, marrying some of the Tainos and mixing, and they brought over like slaves, and the country, like there was slavery, but I don't really think it's comparable to like something like Haiti, where it was like, entirely like
A slave
covered in
colony.
slaves.
Yeah, it wasn't a slave colony.
But that there was slaves, and the people on the island, they were like Spanish descent and mixed race, but they saw themselves as different from like Spain, some of them. So like when I'm talking about Spanish, Dominican, it's like, yeah, they're Spanish, but they view themselves as like separate from like the crown,
Sure, there's a difference between Hispano and Spaniard.
Yeah. So I would say that Dominicans are the descendants of those people. And like, other groups have come throughout history and, have assimilated, to the Dominican culture, like Japanese, Middle Eastern, and I think that it's kind of a gray area. I can't really like, what I personally think is that people who descend from the original like Spaniards who came over and mixed in or whatever, those people are considered Dominican, and other people are like, they're in the country, I guess. They could be considered Dominican nationals, but I wouldn't consider them, Dominican if they didn't go through the things that we went through.
Right. So they're not necessarily ethnic Dominican. You're distinguishing between a national and an ethnic Dominican.
Yeah.
Anybody want to add to that? What do you feel, Duarte?
I think. Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. Let me open it up to Duarte first, and then Haniel come through.
Well, I think he's definitely right, and also we gotta look at our history. I posted something there as a brief timeline. Dominican Republic did not have it was not the same kind of major slavery like the U.S., like Haiti was. So Haiti was founded just as a slave state. If you think about it, it was under French control from the beginning, just to work on plantations, to export, make money for France. While Spain, they were there in the island for like 200 years before Haitians.
Yeah.
200 years before the French started all the trouble. Oh wait, you're making money. I want to make money too. So, through all that time, like there was a blending between Spanish, even Africans, even Tainos. So they kind of established, I would say, something comparable maybe to the U.S. how they established the colonies. There were 13 colonies of England. Santo Domingo was a colony of Spain. So it's like, oh, they Spanish, they like Spain, this and that, and well, they make us money.
Right. What about you, Haniel?
Well, to jump. So the idea of there's a conflict between this idea of nationality and ethnicity. I think Dominican Republic as an independent state was built on the basis of nationality, not necessarily on the basis of ethnicity. Precisely because of the influence of the French Revolution, right? Because the nation is not exactly the nation is more or less this sort of judicial construction of the French Revolution. So I don't usually make this distinction between ethnic Dominicans and national Dominicans. I think for me it's just national Dominicans, especially in a cultural sense. But yeah, I think the Dominican Renaissance is right that the French side of the island was radically different from the Spanish side of the island. In fact, French slaves, Haitian slaves, or French slaves, went to the Spanish side of the island in order to escape the French. So yeah, and I think the idea of that Dominicans are Spaniards, I think that was right to a certain extent, especially to the population of white Dominicans and also mulatto Dominicans. That was the majority, but there was a rupture after the War of Restoration. So I will agree that Dominicans are Hispanic, but not exactly Spaniards. So yeah.
Right. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's hard for me to think of different nation states within Hispanoamerica as separate ethnicities, like full on. Because I think ethnicity is more of a kind of a macro identity. There are nation states, and I would at most consider maybe like a sub ethnicity or like a subculture, but the different cultures of Hispanoamerica, no matter how different they are, maybe let's just say, some of the most different ones would be like Mexico from Dominican Republic, from Argentina, from Peru, right? Those are like the poles of Hispanicity. I'm just kind of pulling this out. But even within those poles, they're mutually intelligible, not just language wise, but like cultural values don't vary very much. It's a regional difference. I don't know if you would agree or disagree with that.
No, yeah, I think like it's just like Brazil, right? I think there was this author, I don't remember his name, but he was the one who promoted the term Latin America, one of the ones in Latin America. Mm. He sort of said that we are los Estados desunidos, right?
Right.
So yeah, I mean, in the case of Brazil, it's like the difference between someone from northern Brazil or southern Brazil. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Although
or within the U.S., you have, Dixie, and you have, Seattle or New York City and L.A.
Oh, exactly. And I think like we should, I think like Hispanics, I agree that national pride is important. But I think that national pride should be understood within the context of Hispanic America. You know what I mean?
Yeah, within the macro ethnic. That's an interesting question. So let me ask Dominican Renaissance and Duarte about this. How do you harmonize both a Dominican identity and a Hispano identity? I don't know if you guys have here's what you could tell me. If you travel to Hispanoamerica outside of the Dominican Republic would be really helpful. Or to what extent have you related to other Hispanos from other parts of Hispanoamerica?
I can't really say that I don't really talk about countries that I've never been to. I don't talk about people that I've never interacted with. So I can't really speak on, like, I never do that. I don't know. I think
No, my
there
question is
are cultural similarities, obviously, because of the Spanish language and you know, Catholicism and being Spanish descent. So there's obviously going to be similarities, but I think there's also a lot of differences, right?
So you don't necessarily have a Hispano identity, if I understand you correctly. It's more of a national identity, and that's kind of it.
Well, no, we're Hispanic, but we're Dominican first. You know what I mean? Like we're our
that's
own,
what I'm trying to. That's
like
what I'm trying to
even if you look at like Puerto Ricans or Cubans, they're like the closest people to us genetically, and you can still tell the difference.
Sure, of course, yeah.
So even among ourselves, like we have like differences culturally.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't. I'm not trying to deny that. I'm just asking more how you harmonize personally those two identities, and if you've ever really been in a situation where maybe one moves.
Well, I don't. Mm-hmm. Well, to me, when I speak about Hispanics working together, I'm talking about like better relations, right? So, if I have a company, right, and there's people that want to, I'm interviewing people, right? And, and there's people, let's say we're talking about the United States of America, right? There's people applying from like all over, right? As a Hispanic, what I should be doing is hiring the Hispanic person because we should help each other, right?
Sure.
And I feel like in those ways and better economic cooperation, right? So trading amongst each other in our region as opposed to like trading with outsiders where, we might be paying more for something, for no reason, just getting to, fixing all these little like dealings that we have with each other so that they're more balanced, so that there's more reciprocity amongst ourselves because of these cultural similarities.
Sure, I understand. What about you, Duarte? How do you harmonize your Dominican identity with your Hispanic identity, and how have those things interacted in your life?
Well, I mean, the Dominican identity, I think everybody has an identity attached to their country. We got independence. Dominican Republic was a colony, Mexico was a colony. We shared that, and at the same time, we have the different flag for our countries. But I think like Hispanics could blend in really, really nicely with each other. Maybe, let me think of a country. No, I don't see honestly, I don't really see, we have differences on our languages, like little words we made up.
Accents, yeah.
Our accents are different. But, no, I mean, I traveled to Mexico. I traveled to, I met Mexicans here in the U.S., all the countries.
What have those interactions been with? Like when you interact with an Hispano from another part of Hispanoamerica, how would you characterize those interactions?
Just normal. It's not like, whoa, do you know how to say this? And the language helps a lot. But there's a lot of similarities. Just, the religion, those values, the family values are really big. And,
does it feel like you're dealing with basically your own people, or do you feel a difference?
No, just the only difference I feel, because I say, this guy is from Argentina. Wait, this guy is from South America, Colombia. But after that, it's really easy to connect. I didn't really see, it was just straight. Like nothing, honestly.
What about you, Alex? I think you have
You hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
All right, yeah. So I grew up in Queens, so I didn't grow up in a Dominican bubble. The neighborhood I grew up in was actually mostly South American, Colombian, Ecuadorian, what's it called, Venezuelan, Uruguay, Argentina. This is back 80s, 90s New York. So I was the only Dominican there, really, and my stepdad was Colombian. So it's like I kind of grew up con una identidad pan y pano because we used to have beef with some white boys and some morenos. And it's like, we didn't look at each other as like, oh, you're Argentinian, you're Colombian, you're this. I mean, we would mention in passing, we were Spanish. That's all we looked at it as. Like, so I developed a more identidad pan y pano. And don't get me wrong, yo tengo orgullo de ser dominicano, pero tengo orgullo también de ser hispano y tengo orgullo también que mi abuelo es de Galicia, de España. So all those identities in me do not contradict. Mm-hmm. So I kind of look at it as a broader thing. I view Dominican more as a subset of a bigger family. I mean, heck, I even view Italians and Filipinos as my brothers. You know, we come from the same Roman root ultimately. And, you know, to talk about Santo Domingo was actually the first European city in the Americas. It was the capital of the Spanish Empire for a very long time. I mean, when you visit La Ciudad Colonial, you see that history, you see that connection with Spain. So to me, being Dominican, being Hispano, being proud of your Spanish heritage from Spain is not a contradiction. That's, you know, that's where I view it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I even got Arab in me, but they Hispanicized. You know what I'm saying? They came to the Dominican Republic early 1900s. They were called Turcos, you know, but they just integrated. So I view it more in a broader sense, you know? So like whenever I've been to Spain, I've been to Mexico, I've been to Colombia, Panama, I've been in various Spanish countries, and I always felt at home. I just felt these are my family, you know?
Yeah, yeah. That's interesting because you didn't grow up in the Dominican bubble, is what you said. And
correct.
So you had to interact more basically for your survival as a young man kind of coming up, you know, fraternizing with more of a pan-hispano type of situation.
You got it. Nosotros contra los malditos racistas o contra los morenos. That's what I grew up around.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's very similar to me too. You know, I grew up with a lot of Mexicans, but you know, we had Peruvians, we had Salvadorians, we had Guatemalans, we had Cubans.
I think we always talk shit about diasporic people and Latinx and shit, but I think Hispanics from the diaspora has the potential to sort of create this pan-Hispanic identity within the U.S.
Agreed.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally agree. Agree.
And in my case, I recognize the differences, especially sort of these regional differences. For example, the Antillean, the Caribbean culture, sort of the Andean culture. You know what I mean?
Yes. Mexican.
Yeah, but those differences are within our own countries. For example, in Venezuela, a guy from Coro, which is like sort of the Caribbean region of Venezuela, is not the same as a guy from Los Llanos. And Los Llanos Venezolanos and Los Llanos Colombianos share the same culture, basically. So I don't like when people try to deny sort of these connections between Hispanics on the basis of differences, because we can easily deny Venezuelans, Brazilians, everyone. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But I think the idea of pan-Hispanic identity among Dominicans, it was huge at the beginning, you know, because the Dominicans felt against when Haiti invaded Dominican Republic, or invaded, whatever you want to call that. But when Haiti were oppressing the Dominicans felt like Spaniards. So at that time, there wasn't this sort of this unified national separated identity of Dominicans that we understand it now. But even before that, the Dominicans that wanted the independence with Spain, they also wanted to unite with Bolivar in a Gran Colombia. You know what I mean? And Bolivar had this sort of dream of a pan-Latin American identity. So even then, and I think like some intellectual figures of the Dominican Republic, for example, Pedro Enrique Sureña, which was one of the most important Latin American writers, of the last century, he had that Hispanic American identity very strong in himself. I mean, he influenced Vasconcelos, he influenced Borges. You know what I mean? He was an important figure, and he thought of himself not only as Dominican but also as Hispanic American. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, can I chime in real quick? He's right, because when you go to La Ciudad Colonial and you see the tombs of the heroes of the Dominican Revolution against Haiti, it doesn't say Levántase Dominicanos, se Levántase Españoles. And that struck me, that at the time of the rebellion against Haiti, they viewed themselves as Spaniards. It was later when Pedro Santana tried to reunite with Spain that the Dominican from Spanish identity got split.
Yeah, but even then, Gregorio Luperón, he was mulatto. He was clearly against Spain. He sort of had this, not exactly. I don't know. I wouldn't call it necessarily pan-Hispanic, but he had a strong pan-Antillean identity. For example, a lot of people like to attribute the idea of the Antillean Confederacy to Hostos and Puerto Rican intellectuals, which they were important there. But it was also the first ones who were talking about that were precisely the Dominicans, like Gregorio Luperón, right? So
Máximo Gómez, he fought for the Cuban Revolution.
Yeah. There was this sort of like non-individualized and more like this pan-Hispanic or pan-Antillean or pan-Latin American, whatever you want to say, call it.
Hispano-Hisleños.
But it was sort of inscribed in a larger culture, you know what I mean?
And how, okay, you guys shared a lot of this history. How does all this history now form the Dominican mind or worldview or outlook today? How would you describe it today, and how does it root to these periods of history that you guys just kind of shared with us? Here, let me be a little bit more specific with that question. So from an outsider perspective, right? And again, this is an outsider perspective. All I know from the Dominican Republic is the music.
What they tell you.
Well, it's the music. The Dominicans that I only knew, 2 Dominicans here in LA. They were mulatas. That's what I would call them. I don't know what they would be called in the Dominican Republic. But they left LA because they felt... They left basically once they came of age, like 18 and 20. They're 2 sisters. They left because they felt like that the Hispanics here didn't embrace enough of like Black Hispanic or Black Latina identity, which I thought was kind of bullshit. I think it's probably induced by pop culture, but that's literally what they told me. So I see this conflict from outside of kind of this racialism where it's like, I've heard it told that Black Dominicans aren't Dominican. I'm confused. Was there blacks in the Dominican Republic before Haiti invaded? I see that there's this tension to kind of deny or reject the non-Spanish admixture. And in the Dominican Republic, the non-Spanish admixture overwhelmingly is African. Is that correct or incorrect? It's not quite like Indio mestizo, like let's say Mexico or Guatemala.
Well, the European tends to be higher than the countries you mentioned, but I guess the second highest, it depends on the region. The second highest, I think, would be African, and then Taino.
Yeah, and so what I've observed, and again, this is just my observation, it seems to me like there is a tension between like over embracing this secondary African root, right? And it's like completely rejecting the Spanish, or it's the opposite, like only pretending that the Spanish existed and ignoring the other admixture. I'm not saying I haven't come across Dominicans who kind of are harmonized with both, but it seems to me from far away that that those tensions are strongest in the Dominican Republic, and I don't notice them being as strong in other Hispano countries. I don't know.
Well,
open that to you.
I'll say this, and don't take this the wrong way.
Yeah.
I think the understanding that you have of the Dominican Republic is no different than the understanding most people have, which is not a lot, right? So you have to understand that our country is misrepresented constantly. So you have to read like literature about how Dominicans identified and how other like European countries or Europeans or whatever, how they viewed us as well. And you have to take into, like, for example, if you Google Dominicans, you're gonna see a lot of like Haitians and African Americans.
Cardi B.
And yeah, Cardi B is not even, she's like Indian or something. But you're gonna so when you click on the photos, right, it's gonna take you to like a website talking about like Haitian immigration or something. Or with the smear campaign about our country being dangerous, like, oh, these foreigners, these Americans were dying, but it really turned out to be natural causes, right? So that you'll see stuff like that. But if you actually like live around Dominicans, if you actually go to the country, they don't really, most of them don't look like Haitians. They really don't.
Yeah. No,
So
I wouldn't
like if I'm a foreigner, right? If I'm a foreigner and I go to the Dominican Republic and I see like really dark people, I might think, oh, though they are Dominicans too. But as soon as they start talking, you're like, wait, well, hold on. This is this is not Spanish. This is like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And also with YouTube, right? YouTube is another thing. So when you look up Dominican Republic on YouTube, what you'll mainly see is like videos of African Americans, in these like areas, these heavily like Haitian areas, recording constantly, giving the impression that we're like an African society when we're literally like the opposite. And I can understand why there's these misconceptions of how Dominicans look, but I don't think to say that we're a black country it's like a straight up lie.
Let me touch on that. Let me touch on that real quick. So I would never assume that Dominicans are Spanish speaking Haitians. Like, no, I wouldn't consider you guys a black country. You guys are Hispano country, and I would say in my head the assumption is that most Dominicans look some degree of mulatto, right? Whether it's a lighter mulatto or darker mulatto, they're mulatto sized in my impression. And I get it that from your perspective, those degrees are going to be more specific, but it's like, here's the thing about Hispanos, like none of us, if we're all hanging out and none of us have one drop of African admixture, whoever happens to be the darkest one, and he could be as dark as a Central Italian, he's going to be called El Negro, right? Like it's not necessarily calling him El Negro is not because he's actual African. He's just the one with the darkest complexion. So I feel like that's one of the things that's really different from Hispanos and other, let's say, Americans, Anglo-Americans, where when we talk about negro, blanco, moreno, trigueño, rubio, whatever, we're not talking about race. We're talking about complexion. So
Our appearance.
yeah, it's just like your complexion. Like you got a darker complexion. So the assumption, I wouldn't necessarily say that Dominicans are necessarily like darker in complexion, but there's like yellow bones, right? Like it's like that's what I would say. It's like a light skinned mulatto is what I would assume is the stereotypical Dominican complexion. But my impression, and it may be wrong, and it may be just because a lot of the merengueros might be of really darker complexion, that, yeah, there is a darker presence. But
presented.
When I get confused with you, when I've interacted with you, Dominican Renaissance, it seems to me like you're basically saying that like the black Dominicans, there is no such thing as a black Dominican. Like those are actually just Haitians. So,
Well, I'm not saying they don't exist. It's just they're a very small population. They definitely exist. They're just it's rare for you to run into one.
I think you need to go to the frontier or San Pedro de Macorís, for example. You know?
Yeah, Los Cocolos, more on the east end of the island.
Not only Cocolos, because the Cocolos are not ethnically Dominican, but people from San Pedro de Macorís, they tend to be dark. They tend to have darker skin, and they still are culturally and historically Dominican, just like without less race mixing. The problem in Rancho is that, especially for Dominican nationalists, is that the notion of Dominicans being black, right? The problem is that everyone that pushes the notion that Dominicans are black, historically speaking, they have sort of this pan-Haitian identity. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So there was this Haitian intellectual. His name was Jean-Pierre Mars or something like that. You know, I'm not a French speaker, but that's his name. He was the sort of the organic intellectual of the dictatorship of Duvalier, of Papadoc, and he sort of had this idea that Dominicans were sort of like talking for Spain, and that the true essence of the Dominican Republic was the negritude, the blackness of the Dominican Republic that they shared with Haiti. That the Dominicans were hiding that blackness because they had this sort of sickness that he called bovarismo. So that's the problem. Like everyone that wants to highlight the blackness of the Dominican Republic, they usually do it in order to lower the Spanishness of the Dominican Republic. You know what I mean? They want to. Yeah. That's basically the ideology behind that. That's basically also in the diaspora, for example. Dominicans from the diaspora, college-educated Dominicans, especially Northeast, the sort of Afro-Latino culture, they want to deny the Spanish side. I mean, they want to deny the Spanish side to embrace the black side. In fact, I had this Twitter fight with this. I don't remember the name of this Dominican girl.
Oh, okay. I thought that was a Haitian guy. Never mind.
No, it was this Dominican girl, pretty famous. She's like a fat, or I don't know. She has like she's a fat
advocate.
Also, she's a fat advocate. She's Black Dominican, and she said that our nations are Afro Indians. You know what I mean? Afro native. You know,
the minority.
Let me chime in. He's right. Go ahead.
Sorry, but they're a minority, and Dominican Renaissance is right that those college-educated Dominicans are from the Northeast and from the U.S. are a minority indeed. But they had a weird voice among the community that is very strong. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Hey, can I add something real quick?
Wait. Alex wanted to say something.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to say he is right about that because take, for example, growing up, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, soy blanquito, okay? You know, descendencia español, libanés. When I would run into Dominicans, especially from Washington Heights, oh, tú no eres dominicano, tú eres muy blanco. Y dice, ¿cuándo fue la última vez tú estás en la isla? Oh, yo nací aquí en Nueva York, me crié en Nueva York. I always hear that. But when I go to Dominican Republic, and I run into dominicanos que son negros, mulatos, que no me importa. El minuto que hablo, saben que soy dominicano. So it's funny, I go to the island, real Dominicans don't have that race consciousness. You come to the States, you run into these people that maybe are like half black, a quarter black, also, oh, soy negro. And they're embarrassed about their Spanish heritage. But that goes for a lot of Hispanos in the United States.
Yeah, that's kind of a general thing.
Yeah. No, but that's a lot of Hispanics, especially Mexican Hispanics. There's sort of this neurotic thing about identifying merely with the Aztecs. It is because of the historians of Mexico were pretty indigenistas. But in the Dominican Republic, the interesting thing is that Dominican, especially Dominican that know history, Dominicans that read, Dominicans that the intellectuals Dominicans historically has been one of the most Hispanophilic intellectuals from all Latin America. I mean, Dominican Republic. I think I will say that Dominican Republic is the most has been the most Hispanophilic nation of all Latin America in terms of intellectuals writing about Spain, the ideology of the presidents. I mean, Trujillo was very Hispanophilic, and Balaguer was this sort of an important figure of Dominican political life. He was also a president. He constantly wrote about that connection that Dominican Republic had with Spain. So that's the interesting thing. So, like, what you don't observe, like the rejection of Spain is a diasporic thing, because in the diaspora, Dominicans have reconciled themselves sort of with Black identity because of their connection with African Americans, but en perjuicio, I don't know how to say that expression in English, but en perjuicio de
prejudice.
En perjuicio de la identidad hispana, you know what I mean, of the connection of Spain. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, it's not comparable with other countries because Dominican Republic has been Hispanophilic in contrast with other countries like Mexico or especially Mexico, or Argentina in some epochs of his age, or even like all the countries with in the past decades with the socialismo del siglo XXI, el chavismo. Dominican Republic has still been this sort of Hispanistas, you know. But the Dominican sorry.
You guys have been talking a lot. And great conversation. I think we should separate this into so many categories because there's an issue of nationalism, there's an issue of country, globalism, human rights, you know, because Haiti and DR are perfect island to showcase globalism, you know, to showcase we should not have borders, to showcase, you know, we could integrate two countries together, kind of like, you know, implementing like, wait, human rights are more important than sovereignty. I mean, what am I saying? The nationhood is more important. It's less important than human rights. You know, and you could call anything like, what is human rights? You know, when is it enough? You know, is it a human right to you just come to a different country and automatically the government there is supposed to take care of you, like things like that, you know. But if I gotta go, so I'm gonna finish with something. It's also we gotta see the R from, you know, we cannot judge the R through the lenses of the U.S. And a lot of people have brought this topic is because from the U.S. perspective, that they are the ones that get the most representation. Like they want to label Dominican Republic a black nation, the second black nation. When in Dominican Republic, nobody wants to be white. Nobody says we are white. You get a slap if you say you are white. At the same time, if you say, wait, I'm African is my motherland, you get slapped equally too. You know, there's that pride that, wait, we are Dominican, you know, Spain doesn't matter, Africa doesn't matter, Dominican first, you know.
Well, Duarte, before you go, you had reached out to me in response to a specific video. I forget which one, but did you want to kind of touch on that again? You know, just to clarify, I really forgot what was our exchange about. I just remember that you reached out, and I did want to include you in today's conversation. Do you remember?
Oh yeah, I remember. I was just a little man, like, what the hell, these guys? Why are you guys attacking the Dominican Republic?
I know, right? That's what I was saying. Like, what the fuck? What the fuck did we do?
Well, I understand. You were making fun of you. You were like,
Andy.
You guys had an argument with
Andy
and Chivo
and Rat Latino.
But one thing that you know, you gotta understand that when Haitians invaded, it's really important to say invaded. They want to say occupy. They want to say help free Dominican Republic.
Yeah,
After
exactly.
1 year of their first independence, that makes no sense. So they call it Spanish Haiti.
Right.
Haiti is a term, it's a Taino term. You know, the French do not own that name, or current Haitians, they do not own that name.
Right.
But they even still call it, even after invading, they had to make a separate distinction to the art. They had to call it the Spanish side. You see what I mean? It's really important.
Yeah. No, I don't. That video again, we were just kind of responding and kind of because the reaction when there's been exchanges, to me, it seems like it's like I see someone who's clearly a mulatto and they're telling me that they're not. And it's just like, come on, papi. Like, what do you mean? You know what I'm saying? Like, de nuevo, talking about when there's a group of us and maybe none of us have any black in us. But, you know, say 4 out of 5 have light eyes. The one with the dark eyes is going to be called negro. And that's not necessarily mean that you're an African American. So it seems like that subject is real touchy. And I understand why from the Dominican perspective, because dealing with the dynamic of Haiti. But it seems like also the fact that you guys overwhelmingly immigrate to the northeast, you're not really in like an Hispano area. So it's like now it's even more because now there's tensions with African Americans almost along the exact same lines as the Haitians. But I'm really glad we're having.
No, I think the reason why I really had a problem with that video because you said something along the lines of, well, Dominican Republic isn't really a part of Latin America, when that's outrageous. Like, there would be no Latin America without the Dominican Republic, first of all.
I don't think I said that.
And you also said something that like something about pervs going to the Dominican Republic or something. So no, it really sounds like you're anti-Dominican and you just have like some deep-seated hatred. I don't know why.
I don't know enough
but,
Dominicans.
You know, it's not just you. It's a lot of other Hispanics who are. I don't know what it is.
Let me explain. Let me explain.
We don't really think about like other Hispanics, you know. So I don't understand where this anti-Dominican, you know, rhetoric is coming from.
Okay,
but you know, it's all based on lies.
Let me interject real quick, dog. Because that video was a response to Andy
specifically,
and specifically. So it was mostly coming towards Andy, and you know, the one of the things that set us off was because, you know, Andy, he was gatekeeping for La Hispanidad. Like, you know, if it was just him talking about Dominicans, then, you know, allá ustedes reglan el pedo, ¿verdad? Pero he started calling, you know, negros del Chocó, los colombianos, ¿verdad? He was calling them Haitians and stuff like that. And, you know, I was like, no, we got to put a stop to that. But what's it called? Do you know whereabouts, like which timestamp or in which video that we said that, like, oh, that they're not really part of Latin America? Because it could be that we were talking about how Latin America is like a French term.
No,
right?
Dude, I'm not a fucking retard, bro. One of you literally said that.
Okay, let me interject. What I said was that Dominican Republic is de facto a colony of the United States.
And it's not.
It is.
I mean, on what basis?
Economically,
dude, all of Latin America
controlled by the United
Well,
States.
you're saying all of Latin America, but you see how you're kind of just lumping us together with...
Oh, no, I'm talking.
No,
but
I'm talking about the Dominican Republic specifically. Like
the Dominican Republic's a puppet state of the United States.
Yes.
Sadly, my family fought the Americans in 1916 and 65, and we lost. And our government doesn't do anything down there without the Americans' permission. That's the truth. I hate it, but it's the truth.
The major industries.
Yeah, but we're not a colony.
De facto. See, de facto and de jure, two different concepts. So yeah, not by law, but by actual action. It's like even the trade policies between Haiti and the Dominican Republic are typed up in a desk in Washington, D.C. So that's what I meant. It's that de facto, it does operate more as a colony of the United States than maybe you even took a second to think about it. That's what I meant. I wasn't saying that ethnically or culturally it's not. Of course not.
I don't think the United States would strip millions of Haitians of citizenship. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
Okay, and
I don't think the
like,
U.S. has the balls to do that.
yeah, that's not necessarily what I meant about the trade policies between Haiti and Dominican Republic. I'll give you one specific example because I did read up on this. So the fact that there's Haitian economic migrants in the Dominican Republic, and the business interests who lobby for that are all American firms because they want to operate in the niceness and safety of the Dominican Republic, but they want to pay Haitian salaries. So in that specific example, and this is a subject that's highly relevant to you because you have a very strong anti-Haitian stance, which I'll join you in
Most
that.
Dominicans do.
Yeah, I'll join
It's
you.
not just me. That's what you need to realize.
Okay, I'll join you in that. Now, we also have highlighted that a lot of Dominicans, once they get to the United States, they seem to fall for the opposite side, this kind of Latinx or pro-African, anti-Spanish side. So I wouldn't say, I don't know if most of them or all of them. Again, what I'm seeing is what I'm going based off, right? And in the United States, it seems like there's this strong push that's anti-Spanish, pro-African that we highlighted earlier. But the point I was making, the one that you took contention with, I wasn't necessarily talking ethnically or culturally. I'm just talking about de facto, how it operates. The rules of the plaza in the Dominican Republic do not come from Dominicans. They come from American policy, foreign policy.
Hey, I'd like to add to that. OG, you're really correct when you touch that. But we could say that about a lot of countries, of course, a lot of South American countries.
For sure.
But Dominican Republic is a special case because they literally erasing the sovereignty of the country, the identity of the country, just for cheap labor, cheap Haitian labor.
Yes.
You know what I mean? They buy the land.
Yep.
They even the damn drugs. They use it as a getaway for drugs because they own the government. I mean, the people are free. It's Dominican Republic with Dominicans, but I mean, if they control the government, do we really have a free state? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I would agree that is the case in essentially almost all. I can only think of Cuba, Venezuela, and Nicaragua as really the strongest exceptions who don't necessarily fall within that category. And I think that's a very important subject that's extremely relevant to all of us. And that's a subject that really brings us all together because the question is, well, then how do we fix this? Because I don't see this dynamic being fixed by independent piecemeal nation states. It has to be a macro ethnic civilizational effort in order to really gain the independence.
Can I chime in real quick? Go ahead.
Sorry. Sure. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I mean, mira la madre patria, España. It's a puppet of the European Union. Absolutely. Italia, where the Latin culture began, puppet of the European Union. All our countries are fucking controlled by outsiders, whether the U.S. or the EU. What would happen if one day todos los países que se van al carajo, todos esos países, y nos reunificamos? España, Italia, Portugal, Latinoamérica, y los Filipinas. What would happen? Once again, la águila romana would fly, the world would shake.
Amen.
Eso mero.
I'm not against a pan-Hispanic union, but I think we need to be realistic in the sense that without the Dominican Republic is an island that has no capacity to have any influence over Washington. You know what I mean? Although Trujillo, I'm gonna say this, Trujillo actually did some not terrorist attacks, but he actually did some weird shit inside of the U.S., which was very interesting. But he actually actually Trujillo had in several opportunities he killed political opposition in the U.S. So that's like a huge fucking thing.
Yeah, he would export them to the country and.
No, and that shows that shows a sort of the cojones that Trujillo had. But
cuando Trujillo tomó poder, fue la embajadora americana, pagó la deuda, and for 30 years he told them, "Fuck you, don't come to my country."
Yeah, but he later during the Cold War he became first like sort of this pro-American. Then he became anti-American. It was a weird thing. But the idea
Yeah,
is
he
that
betted up with Castro for a little bit. Yeah, at the end.
yeah. But the
So-
thing is that we can't, as independent nations, we can't fight the U.S. So the option is the U.S. or poverty. You know what I mean? And I'm not that I think we should unite, but at the same time, it's going to be impossible if as independent nations we sort of become this anti-United States thing, because in the end, it's not going to be that beneficial for the economy of the country.
I originally, so I made a video on this, like, I think it was like last year. I made a video with two other Dominicans. We were talking about a possible union with Spain and Latin America, and it was entirely in Spanish. So the conclusion that we came to is that most Latin American countries today wouldn't really agree to that, to like one unit, like one state that we're all like under. Like, that's just not gonna happen. So like we have to work within our nations, right? So we have to look at all these like treaties and stuff we have with each other, and we need to work on those. Like, we need to work on these ties that we have with each other and with Spain. And that means that we have to get rid of like the Black Legend. We have to like wipe that completely from our history. Well, not completely.
Amen, hermano. Amen.
Not completely from our history, but you know, that can't be our history. You know, we need like actual history. We need to know like who we are. Yeah, I feel like we need to actually have like real history. Like, our history books should start in Spain. I think that's the most logical, like, you know, thing that we could do, is that our history starts there, and then, you know, what happened afterwards, like what happened with the conquistadors coming to the Americas and all these things.
Yeah. And I think that's a good subject for another podcast. But I want to focus more again on like the Dominican situation and how to relate here in the United States. What are the opportunities to collaborate? What are the things that, you know, piss you off that we've said, that you've shared some, and what are the misconceptions that you'd like us to understand? But I'm not sure if you have access to the general chat, because I'm uploading a picture and I want you to see it. Can you see it, Dominican Renaissance? It's called La Cueva, the general chat. You might need to scroll.
Okay.
You see it? If you click on it, you'll see a picture.
Oh, these girls?
Yeah. So are these girls Dominican, in your opinion?
Some of them are. I can't really say they're all Dominican, because I would say some of them are definitely Dominican.
The prettiest ones are. The uglier
I'm
ones
not sure. I'm not sure. So I would have to say some of them. I would have to default to some of them.
Let's just say that the prettier ones are, but the uglier ones are. See, so like that's kind of what that's kind of. Ay, papi, Alex, I think you need to mute. Can you hear me? There you are. Okay. So we're saying that the prettiest ones are Haitians, the uglier ones might not be. So that's kind of what.
I never said that.
I'm saying that. And would you disagree with that assessment? The lighter one in the middle is Dominican. The darker one to the far left is not.
I can't tell. I would just say that these girls don't represent most Dominicans.
What?
So like, if you were to say if this is what Dominicans look like, I'd be like, well, that's,
Yeah,
so I guess
wouldn't.
some maybe.
Yeah,
but
some.
In your opinion, what do you think would represent the average Dominican, right?
the average Dominican,
Is more mestizo.
I think to get an idea of what the average Dominican looks like, you'd have to like, okay, so you know this feature on Instagram where you could like go to different locations, you would have to use that, I guess, or like you would have to take Tinder or something. I don't know. Like you would have to find a way to look at how actual, like, outside of like Google and YouTube, you would have to like really go out of your way to see what they look like.
Do you have a picture
Well,
that you
we
can send
had a
us?
discussion on Dominican Renaissance. We had a discussion on Twitter, and you showed me you did this. You did the same thing that you're talking about, and it was you showed me basically like kids from private schools, and
dude,
and I said
literally,
to you,
I have
and I said to
videos
you,
of every region in DR where people literally where they don't look black. Like I have literal videos of every region.
no, certainly they don't look black Haitian, but some
Well,
Dominicans
no, like Africans, they don't look African.
The thing
Well, I
you
get to-
show
I'm
me,
saying.
you literally show me a picture of a private school with a lot of white kids. I mean, and I say
Well,
like in my case, for
well,
example, in my case,
Well, I send you
case.
photos of different areas. So that
went
Well, if you go to the
different
Cibao, si tú vas al
schools.
Cibao, la mayoría son blancos. En el Cibao, como Santiago, Moca,
Bro,
Salcedo, son
I literally
blanquitos.
got photos from Santo Domingo, and there was like one Haitian kid in the photo.
And I like to chime
what
in.
make-
But if
Dominican Renaissance, do you have anyone in your family that resembles any of those girls in the picture? Because I sure do, and my family has all shades.
Yeah, but my family, your family, my family don't represent like the entire. You know what I mean? Like they don't. I have family members like from all over.
And they don't represent it because of their appearance, not necessarily
Well, no,
the
I'm just
language,
saying-
the culture, or the religion that we all have in common.
No, I'm just saying that like the idea that Dominicans are Africans.
Yeah,
is
but you see
a
that
fallacy.
that's like I always notice this from like your camp or your side of the discussion that you're assuming we're saying you guys look like you're from the Congo. Nobody, I don't think.
What else does black mean, dude?
You see,
Africa.
that's so funny. There it is. You see that reveals it because I keep giving you the example that if none of us had African admixture, let's just say we all go back to our Spanish ancestor, right? Let's go to our last Spanish ancestor. We're going to be different shades of white, Mediterranean. There's going to be a darker one. Let's just assume the one that looks more Sicilian than the others. He's going to be called negro.
What if I told
Moreno.
you? What if I told you that doesn't apply in our country?
Explain.
Well, we don't. Just because someone is darker, we're not going to call them moreno. Like I know this is a thing in Latin America, but in some countries, but in our country, just because someone is brown doesn't mean they're African. Doesn't mean they're black, you know.
But I never.
Because all black, because all black, it doesn't mean that they're black, you know.
Yeah, that's what I'm. But that's what I'm saying.
a lot
That's
of
not what
times
you're
they
saying.
call-
You're saying the
I mean,
opposite.
No,
some mulattoes call themselves indios, you know, which is interesting. I
Or
mean,
trigueño. That's another term I hear.
Yeah,
yeah, but Indio is the funniest shit ever because I mean, Taino blood in the Dominican Republic is very residual, as is, you know, Taino blood, Taino culture is very residual, and the thing is, the funny aspect of Dominicans is that, and I think we need to accept this, that Dominican, at least the intellectuals that constructed the culture of Dominican Republic, it's silly because they just simply didn't want to accept black people or black or that black
people.
The admixture.
No, but the idea of
black people.
What I'm talking about, Dominican Renaissance. I've read a lot of Dominican intellectuals, Peña Batel, Balaguer, Manuel Núñez. I know all of them. When I'm talking about black, yeah, of course, Haitians, but at the same time, Dominican Republic did not. The people that constructed the identity of Dominican Republic, they didn't accept blacks, Africans into that identity, and that's true. I mean, for example, the fact that, the construction of the Indio of the mythology of Enriquillo, of Anacaona, sort of these sort of these like the original Dominican nation that, or let's not put it that way, but the national mythology after the war of Spain, they needed to identify themselves with something that was not Spain in order to define themselves nationally. So instead of talking about the black slave, they talk about the Indian princess Anacaona, because they simply didn't want to identify themselves with blacks, So I think
I think the blacks didn't really have that much influence to begin with. They were always a minority.
I mean, but if you are mulatto, if Dominican
It's
Republic,
kind of like saying, are Americans black? Well, no, black people live here.
No, I know that
13% of the population is black, but this is not a black country.
I'm referring to the fact that Dominican mulattoes didn't even include the African slave into the construction of the Dominican identity. So you have a mulatto that is writing and constructing the national history of the Dominican Republic, and they include the myth of Anacaona and Enriquillo, and not the myth of the black slave. You know what I mean? This is changing.
The black slave wasn't even really this wasn't even like, the African slaves were not a major part of Dominican history. It was really the conflict between Tainos, Dominicans, and Spaniards, and the French, and like the Africans were not. There is not much to write about, unfortunately. So it wouldn't make sense.
But you know that Gregorio Luperón was a mulatto, right?
That's fine.
Yeah, some of the greatest Dominicans eran moreno.
One of our founding fathers, yes.
And one of our founding fathers was mulatto, and the pictures of him are not precisely from a mulatto point of view. You know what I mean? So I don't think it is true. I don't think we need to to deny that Dominicans were not to deny that you're being in denial when you say that blacks had no.
Well, no, it's just fact. It's just
what do you mean it's fact?
They're part of us, dude.
But yeah, but
so you would
what large historical things did they do in the Dominican Republic that we should know about?
Pelearon contra los haitianos.
Well, what about la música?
That's what I'm getting at here. Like, historically, like, the African population didn't really, like I said, this was mostly about the conflict between Tainos, the Spanish, Dominicans, the French, and later on the U.S.
Would mulattoes fall into the Dominican category?
What do you mean?
Well, would mulattoes like fall in
people who have been in the country for like since the beginning?
Yeah.
Yeah, or
yeah, obviously. Goes without saying.
What about the black?
But that's what I'm saying. Mulattoes are part black and part Spanish. You know what I mean?
I never said. I know.
I'm not saying that you're not. I'm not saying that you're. I'm not implying that you're stupid or something. I know you're not stupid. So the point is that it is simply a fact that the Dominican construction of nationhood simply did not include the black side, which is of course I agree that Dominican Republic is predominantly, at least in the spheres of higher culture, a Hispanic culture and not necessarily an African one. I agree with you with that, but that doesn't mean that Africans didn't have through the mulatto, precisely through the mulatto, Africans through the mulatto, they didn't have a role in the construction of Dominican Republic. I mean, even in the way that Dominicans talk, you can recognize the blackness, the black features of the Dominican way of talk.
In the accent.
Como tu ta, that sort of like structuring of the words is black.
Yeah, but we don't use black words. We don't use African words.
Yeah, but
we only
accent,
use Spanish and native words.
The accent
Y en la
itself.
música.
Yeah, and
I'm just saying, it's like it's okay. Yeah, there are African aspects, but I mean, this is.
But that's you see that's the thing.
America has African aspects. It's not a African country. Like, this is what I'm trying to get.
No, but
like,
no one is saying that. The thing is, you're denying that black.
I'm not denying anything.
You just said that. You just literally said that black.
May I
to do with
Haniel?
No, I didn't say they had anything to do. I said they didn't really do anything that I guess was worth putting down in the history.
Yo, this got a chance.
Yeah, let me just, because I've been listening to the discussion, and I'm not going to misrepresent what I think hearing you say Dominican Renaissance is that, like, because of the fact that the Africans came over as slaves, they were not of as much consequence as the other people living in the island. So, like, because the Tainos were pretty much, extinguished within like maybe the first couple hundred years, it was really the Spanish and the Spanish mixed people who had the influence. And yes, that there's some admixture, you're saying, and yes, that there is some influence in, genetics, customs, and things like that. However, it is not the main focus point for you.
It's not only that it's not the main focus point. It's just like every country has cultural influence from other places. That doesn't mean that they need to define themselves by those influences.
Right, I get you. So like, how when the Latinxers or maybe like the leftists in America, they will say, well, this country was built on the backs of slaves, right?
That's absurd.
Yes, they did the manual labor, but they weren't the people directing the labor. They weren't the people thinking about things, creating things, like inventing things, for the most part. Yeah, there were some like black inventors, the guy who made peanut butter, and I think there's like the dude who invented the street light and a few other things, right? But like, for the most part, the innovation that was driven was done by primarily European peoples. And they constructed the country, not necessarily the person working in the field or doing the manual labor. And they make they don't make that distinction between the people who are thinking things up and creating things mentally, with a vision, versus those who are just la raza obrera, like the working class who are just doing the manual work. And so what I'm hearing is that, like, that's sort of how you see your country and, your national identity. And, one thing that you said to me, or, that during this discussion, not to me, but during this discussion, is that you see yourselves as Dominican first, and you see you don't really think about the rest of Hispano.
We're like Japanese. We're like Japanese, right. Literally. We're like the Japanese. Not saying that like, oh, we're all rich and super advanced. No, but our identity is very similar to something like that.
So I did notice that, right? So like, I grew up in New York. And, I've known many Dominicans. I wrote in the chat that, I had a girlfriend at one point who was Dominican. She's been one of my best friends for like 10 years. This is back when I was in college and I was taking Spanish class. And, I've known Dominicans, right? So, like, I've had plenty of interactions with them. And I lived in Upper Manhattan for a time, right? And so one thing I noticed is that the Dominican group, when they went to the park, they ran the baseball fields. You guys were your own thing. Like, so, it felt almost impenetrable, right? To get in your circles, even though I, speak Spanish, we can talk, we can shoot the shit, it just seems like you guys are very much because maybe you're an island, and I think, the parallel between Japan is probably a good one. It does seem like that you guys are your own separate entity. And I'm pretty sure because of the fact that you have a hostile neighbor next door, probably even, solidifies that even more. But, I just didn't wanted to say that. And like, when we were having discussions on Twitter, man, I was just busting your balls a little bit, bro. Like, obviously, like, I've known Dominicans who are white, like the girl that I dated, to, I had a babysitter that looked more like the girls in the photo, to, people that I work with or that I've known throughout school, college in New York City, all shades, right? So when you say that there's some, regional differences, I can get that because, I don't look like what you would call typical Mexican. I don't look like one, right? The people from my region are primarily from Spain, with a little bit of mestizaje from the Purepecha Indians there, right? So we do see ourselves differently based on the region that we're from. And, Rico, you say the same thing, que los norteños también es igual, los sinaloenses también, like, we see ourselves as separate from, like, say, like, the people in Mexico City who they call chilangos, or, the people from the Yucatan and Chiapas or Oaxaca, like they were almost not the same people. I mean, ethnically, but we are in the sense nationally, with the national identity, because even our Indio blood is still different tribes based on regions. So, I get that. Like, I definitely, see what you're trying to say here.
If I could jump on real quick, because I'm about to leave, but yeah, bringing up La Cosa del Norte de Mexico versus the South, and, something that I could relate to based off was growing up, I had a lot of other people say, well, you don't really look Mexican because I'm from Durango and there's not that much, Duranguenses up here in NorCal. Entonces, I think it came from that, American, lens that, they just assumed that every Mexican was a, Michoacano or a Oaxaqueño, little short brown dudes. Well, when in reality, the Republic, we have all kinds of people, and un Oaxaco is not less Mexican than, un Chihuahuense, with green eyes. So from that point of view, like, I could understand also when Dominican Renaissance, he posts like these pictures of these very complected people, because a lot of people, they do have a preconceived, American lens looking into the Dominican Republic, right? Seeing them as it's just a mulatto nation. Cuando en verdad pues hay de todos, ¿verdad?
Yeah, dude. Like, I would say like half of my teachers are white Dominicans. Like half of my babysitters are white Dominicans. Like, this is not something that, like, if you live in an area that's predominantly Dominican, this is something that you already know. But for whatever reason, the rest of the world is not aware of this. And, this is how, even when you look at like certain government websites, they'll have like Haitians on, and like, why Haitian? Why can't they get dark Dominicans? If they want to be diverse, right? If they want to include like all the different shades, why are they putting Haitians?
Why not dark Dominicans? Right?
So yes. So, this is something that is really misunderstood on a international level. And people like me try to clarify,
it's happening to all the Spanish
misunderstanding.
Let me add something really quick. Because here's what I've noticed, and this is just, let's disconnect from the interactions that we've had and, with other people as well. This is just me coming at you like a friend. When you take a tone that's very like defensive or like aggressive, you kind of open up a taboo, and then you only give power to the opposite take. So by you taking such a like, no, we're not black, no, we're not African, no, we're not African. Okay, maybe we're a little tiny bit African. that's kind of the stance you take, then it seems ridiculous to us who aren't from there, and we're just kind of looking at you because, yeah, you said like I have white Dominican teachers or whatever, but you'd be surprised that maybe to us that white Dominican would still kind of be a mulata to us.
No. I mean white.
Okay, yeah, I get it. But the point that I'm trying to make is
when I say white, I mean white.
Yeah.
Like
but
European.
Like very complected, right? Light skin.
Not like not yellow. Not like
bone.
Stephen Curry. I mean like
or not like Andy, right? But like light, like they look European, right?
So like,
but
you know,
hold on. Let me highlight this point real quick. Is that again because the stance is so defensive to where somebody like a Steve Curry,
because I've been doing this for like 2 years, dog. I've been on YouTube for like 2 years saying the same shit.
Yeah, but I mean, I just joined, so I mean, I'm sorry about your personal experience, but I'm just coming to the conversation right now, and so are all of us. So if you've had to repeat it, I respect it, but we're new to the conversation, and we're kind of meeting each other. And when I have somebody that looks like Steve Curry tell me that he's not African or that he's ashamed of his African, or to say something that Afro-Latinos, without really defining what that term is, aren't Hispanos or aren't Latinos, then it just adds to this impression of that's fucking ridiculous. Like, have you looked in the mirror? You see, like that, and then you get annoyed with us because we take this stance, and it's just like, well, from our perspective, you're saying that you're not African when you look like Steve Curry. So
we never said, like, I don't know where you got this
we're talking about
misconception.
Yeah, he's referencing Andy specifically.
Yeah,
but
specifically.
Yeah, well, Afro-Latinos aren't Hispanic, so I don't see why you would be offended over that.
You're saying that los morenos from El Choco...
Haitians are not Hispanic.
Okay.
Afro-Cubanos are Spanish. Afro-Cubanos are Spanish.
Los colombianos del Choco, los de Veracruz, they're not Hispanic now just because of their skin color. So would that also mean that we had to cut out the mestizos from that equation? Like a genuine question.
I don't see how we got there.
Well, you see what I'm getting, right? Because
I don't see how we got there.
Let's go back to those examples. The examples you gave. You heard the examples Rico gave?
Some homie, he said, los afro-cubanos, ¿verdad? Los colombianos del Choco, que, you know, they have a strong, you know, African admixture.
I'm not going to talk about other countries.
No, but
I'm just going to say,
buddy, and I'm talking about.
Then why use Afro-Latino? Why not just say Dominican?
Afro-Latinos. You know what I'm saying?
I don't use that word.
Well, it sounds like you're equating them with Haitians, right?
With Haitians.
So like,
yeah, because that's what it really means.
To you,
no.
That's what it's really.
Africano's been around for 300 years, brother.
Let me add here. So they've done a study on Black Cubans, and 80% of them had the R1b haplogroup, which means that they have the same haplogroup as a Spaniard born in Spain or even a Southern Italian, and they look black. So how would you know these people what haplogroup they have just by looking at them?
Yeah, I mean,
because that would be a paternal lineage.
You'll never be able to tell, like, you know. I mean, you can have an idea.
So then, how can you say that they're not?
Yeah.
I never said that. You said Afro-Cubans.
You said Afro-Latinos are not Hispanic.
Yes.
And you know, we brought out examples of other.
If you call
Hispanics.
yourself an Afro-Latino, you're not Hispanic.
All right. If we're talking about the Latinx, I'm talking about the phenotype, the people with African admixture.
Well, that's not what I said.
The ideology.
Okay.
That's not what I said.
Because if you're talking about Latinxers, then like I'll agree that they are, you know, disconnected and they have a kosher or, you know, Walmart.
There's like a
version.
difference between what I'm saying and what like you're interpreting.
Well, that's why we're talking, dog. So I can understand what you're trying to come with. Because when you say,
I never said.
I take it. Because when
I never said Black Cubans, Afro, whatever you want to call them, I don't know what they call themselves.
No.
But if you want to say, if these people,
trying to say though, right? Because when you say that face value, you know, that's what we got to interpret. So that's why we're having this talk, just to see what we're trying to come at. It's nothing personal, dog.
So we can agree on terms, because we have to agree on terms, because that's the thing. So it's like you're saying Afro-Latino. If you call yourself that, you're assuming a political ideology, which I would agree with. If you have
completely political,
yeah. If you have that political ideology, then
nobody calls themselves. Listen, nobody in Latin America calls themselves Afro-Latino.
Okay, let me explain that real quick. You know why they're starting to? because of American propaganda. And you know what's adding to them doing that? People who take Andes and, I don't know if you don't want to be clumped together, but that stance. When you say something like Afro-Latinos aren't Latinos.
You're lumping in the entire country. You're lumping in the most of the Dominican Republic.
Most of the Dominican Republic isn't making videos going spiral. Like
they would
spewing.
disagree on this.
But you haven't even let me finish my point. So
go ahead.
When you say a statement like that, all you do is invite a visceral reaction the opposite way. That's what I'm talking about. You're opening up taboos. You're not necessarily explaining that when I'm saying Afro-Latino, I'm saying a political ideology. That's not what was said. What was said is that if you're a negro from El Chocó, if you're de Veracruzano or Oaxaqueño, then all of a sudden you're not Hispano or Latino now? You see?
No, listen. I'm not going to call people in other... that's not my business. Like in other countries, that's not my business. So I don't even want to get into that because every country has its own its own like name or whatever.
But the term Afro-Latino is talking about other countries. You didn't say Afro-Dominicans aren't Dominicans. You said Afro-Latinos aren't Latino.
Or aren't Hispanic.
No, I said aren't Hispanic.
But now, and then you explain that you're talking about a political ideology. So let's get away from the political ideology. Let's talk about Celia Cruz. Is she Latina or not?
What do Cubans consider her?
What do you consider her? I'm not asking.
It doesn't matter what I consider her.
Ella hispana, hermano. Ella hispana.
It's just a conversation.
No, are you understanding? Like my views are not. I'm not putting my views on the rest of Latin America.
But no one.
These are Dominican views.
No one is saying
that. Wait, Dominican Renaissance. You know Manuel Núñez, right?
No.
Manuel Núñez wrote this book, El Ocaso de la Nación Dominicana, in which he basically he's like the most important Dominican nationalist intellectual who follows the tradition of Dominican Hispanics like Peña Batel, like Balaguer, like the ideologues of the ideologues of Trujillo. He follows that tradition, and I show you a picture of him. Can you see it right now?
You're talking about the gentleman with glasses.
Yeah, he's the most. I swear to God, he works in the Department of He worked in the Department of Defense of Dominican Republic, protecting Dominican Republic from the Haitianization. He's pretty much a very strong Dominican nationalist. Will you call him Hispanic?
Sorry. Where is he from?
He's from the Dominican Republic.
Oh, so like
you can see his phenotypes, right? Like on the basis of his phenotypes, will you consider him Hispanic or Dominican?
I don't know. First thing
you're the problem is that you're doubting, and there are Dominicans like him, independently of.
I wouldn't know.
Like, there are Dominicans like him, like there are Dominican, black Dominicans, white Dominicans, mulatto Dominicans, and they're like Dominicans with strong African features. That doesn't mean they're Haitians. You know what I mean?
Son hispanos. Si hablo español, son
Black
hispanos.
Dominicans.
Is David Ortiz Dominican to you?
Oh, he's obviously like part Dominican.
Is he as Dominican as Alex Rodriguez?
Wait, but like let him finish about like the case of Manuel Núñez particularly.
So
because I know this guy has
so usually when someone shows, because I can't tell, like even with like white Dominicans, like sometimes I'm like I don't know if this person's Dominican or this person's like German or Spanish or. So I usually look at like their parents, what their parents look like, if it's possible.
But that's.
But you know that Andy will.
Does it matter?
Andy will say, wait. Andy will say that Manuel Núñez, a guy that has done more for Dominican nationalism that Andy will ever fucking have, is not Dominican.
Well, he didn't die in the battles that we fought. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like if he's If he has been around,
wait, Dominican Renaissance. Wait.
What battle you fought?
What about
What battle you fought?
my ancestors did, obviously.
My daddy.
So did mine.
Yeah, who cares?
Wait, how do you?
Yeah.
How
So
do you?
did his.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, if he's Dominican, if he's been on the island, but looking at him, I don't really, I don't know a lot of Dominicans. I can't think of a Dominican that looks like that.
Okay, so you see,
This might be like a new.
The problem is that let's
Are we
not,
serious?
wait. Let's
Yeah,
talk
I'm
about
dead
we're talking about Manuel Nunez, which is literally the only fucking Dominican nationalist that is important right now. Like that's the guy that all the fucking college educated Dominicans from the diaspora quote in order to fucking shit on him because he's the Dominican nationalist. You know what I mean? So we're talking about Manuel Nunez. We're not talking about like a random. We're not talking about a random black person from Dominican Republic.
I think I don't know. It's just like if you're asking me, maybe you'll ask another Dominican, they'll be like, "Oh yeah, he's Dominican." Like they'll be able to tell immediately. But
all right,
I can't.
He's Dominican to me.
Like if I see him, if I just see a random photo of the guy, I wouldn't think Dominican immediately.
Okay, but let's say that you were, to sit down in a cafe, or you were just talking to him, on the bus or something like that.
Mhm.
I'm assuming that would you be able to tell if he was Dominicano? From if you sit down and have a conversation.
Maybe his mannerisms, maybe the way. If I see him in person, I could probably tell immediately by the way he stands, by the way he walks, by the way. Like I could probably tell if I see him in person.
But by this picture,
right?
This picture's not enough to tell.
All right,
so with a picture, it's like kind of it's hard.
So here's one thing.
So you see the thing about how basing things about looks doesn't always check out, right?
No, I just think with a photo is infinitely harder to try to tell where someone's from.
But what I think Rico's trying to say is that, like, if we base things primarily on phenotype, complexion,
Well, you can show me like some white Dominican, and I'll be like, shit, I don't know. Like, I would.
You see what we're trying to say.
That matter. He's like Dominican, like black, white. He's still Dominican.
The language.
I have to. If I show you a photo, hey, this guy is an Afro-Argentinian, right? And
cool.
like sure. If you just saw this guy like in any other situation, you might not assume that.
Yeah, but that's not the question. The question is...
It also depends. It also depends where you are. Like, where are you?
What I'm trying to say is that there is no why. Why will you hesitate in saying that he's Dominican? You know what I mean?
This sounds kind of
because there are millions of Haitians in the country.
Just don't hesitate.
That's why.
So here's the thing that
there's only 8 million Dominican Republic. There's probably maybe 1 million Haitians in DR. Let's not exaggerate either.
Well, the people. Well, okay. So, do you live there? Do you live there?
I got family there.
Okay. Well, most people will tell you that it's in like 5 million.
That's untrue. I've been to DR just as recently as a year ago.
That's what they'll tell you.
I've been out there, dude. I've been to Santo Domingo, Santiago, Moca.
Okay,
the Haitians
people will tell you that. The people who are involved in politics will tell you that.
No, my family. What I saw out there. Yeah, there's Haitians, but they ain't the majority.
I never said they were the majority.
Okay. Damn, you sound like Trump or something. Oh, the Mexicans are taking over. Dude, we're not of those ideology. We're not those people.
I never said they were the majority.
Let's not get distracted here. So really, here's the thing: is someone like what was this gentleman's name? Nunez was his last name.
Manuel Nunez.
Do Dominicans
circles here?
Do Dominicans look like that? Are there Dominicans that look like that? Yes or no?
Like the
just
guy
yes or no
you showed me with the glasses?
Nunez, yeah. Yes or no? Do some Dominicans look that way? Who've been there from the beginning of the island? Or
you're asking me if I know what, like, how could I possibly know that?
It's just
I can guess.
No, I'm asking.
But I can't possibly know. No one knows that.
Wait. What? Don't just listen to the question because it's very simple. Do some Dominicans look of that man's phenotype? Some.
I gotta look at the photo again. Hold on. Maybe, probably.
Yes or no, Papa?
But I just,
yes or no?
I've never seen it.
So you've never seen a Dominican, a real Dominican, according to your definition of a real Dominican, of that
Never
phenotype.
seen it.
Okay, so
What do you mean never seen that Dominican Renaissance? Come on, dude.
I mean,
That's like,
dude.
I'm
So
laughing
I'm
right now. No, yeah, you're lying right now if you say I never seen
So
that.
you know what I've experienced?
I'm sorry, Dominican. I'm sorry for your subjective experiences that I actually don't really
Yeah,
care about.
we're all
you know what I mean?
subjective. So I don't see why my experience is less important.
Because it's goofy.
Because it's goofy. Well, that's not really a real explanation.
Okay, let's say
No one here
Don't be
knows
like
what
Trump,
every
man. Don't be like
Dominican
Trump.
looks like.
I
No one here
understand. I
knows what every
understand.
Dominican looks like. That's ridiculous.
but that's not
You
the
say that,
question.
that's not the point.
So,
Gentlemen,
That's not the point. You say that you never seen a Dominican like that.
Order.
hold on.
Court,
I'm an outsider, right? Being that I'm Mexican and I grew up around, people from Las Antillas in New York, right? When I grew up, there wasn't that many Mexicans. In fact, there were more Puerto Ricans and Dominicans. Primarily Puerto Ricans, and then over time became much more Dominican in the Bronx and in Manhattan, right? So I won't ever mistake someone who's a Dominican for someone who's African American because of the way they speak, the way they act. But I have seen Dominicans that are that phenotype, and one of the first times that I knew that there was a beef between Haiti and the Dominican Republic was when I was living out in the upper part of Manhattan, and there was a demonstration. This was right around the time, right before the citizenship for Haitians was stripped, and it was a demonstration of Dominicans against Haitians and Haitian migration in this country, in their country. And there were some Dominicans that looked like that guy Nunez, and they were virally like anti-Haitian, and that's okay. Like I get that because of the cultural distinctions.
That's like
But,
Nunez. It's literally violently anti-Haitian.
Okay, am I gonna attack you now? Is it my cue to attack you now because of your experience? No.
I'm not. No one is attacking you in the Dominican Renaissance. You're being
obviously. Yeah, I mean, I had like 3 guys jumping on me, dude. Obviously, I mean.
But you're being.
You got to think about how you're actually being
okay.
perceived.
Gotta say, order in the court. Bobby, you are being defensive.
We're just asking you questions.
You are kind of being defensive, and yes, we all kind of jump, and we jump viscerally, dude. Because
Well, you're not Dominican.
And I'm sympathetic towards your position.
We jump. Wait up. We
actually, everyone is sympathetic to your position.
God damn
like
it.
so,
Say
when I was trying to explain this, is just that I immediately knew someone who was a Dominican versus someone who was a Puerto Rican versus someone who was Mexican versus someone who was from Central America or from South America, right? In New York now you have everybody from everyone, right? So you can always tell the difference, and and I totally agree with you on your points that there's a variety of shades across the island, and majority of your paternal roots is Spaniard or European for sure. And I've seen some studies, back while I was doing stuff back and forth with you and with Andy and stuff about how the maternal side is mostly, from African admixture. Not all of them, right? Not everyone, right? Yeah. But a lot. But I just want to say, man, we're not jumping on you.
Yeah, no.
I want you to.
I would say that most of us actually empathize with your position, but the thing is, you get defensive and touchy around the Black Dominican subject, and you don't. Wait. Let me finish. Let me finish.
Not really.
Let me finish. Yeah, you don't answer simple questions with simple answers.
Because it's not a simple thing.
Are there without Haiti ever existing? Would there be Black Dominicans today?
That's not.
It's just
life. That's not real life.
No, what I'm saying is there a Black presence in the Dominican Republic, notwithstanding Haiti?
Yes, I've said that. I literally said that.
But it seems like
twice.
but we have to like wrestle it out of you. I don't know if you've noticed.
You
that.
always
No,
go
you
back
no,
and
you
forth.
literally
Yeah.
don't. I literally said it like probably multiple times.
Just be a little.
You always go
are you
back
listening
and
to
forth.
me?
Guys.
Dude,
Hold on.
Are you listening to what I'm saying?
Hold on.
There's a constant back and forth, Dominican Renaissance. As simple as that. And
hold
everyone
on.
noticed that.
Please,
Besides, like, it's not like we're your enemies or we're attacking you, but
I didn't say you were
everyone
my enemy.
noticed that.
I didn't use that word.
Because-
No. Yeah, I understand. I'm just using words. But the thing is, everyone noticed your back and forth when we're talking about the black question.
What?
Everyone noticed your back and forth and how we need to go around in circles with you when we mention black. When we're talking about the black question.
You asked me, is this guy? Have you seen a Dominican that looks like this guy? No. Have I seen black Dominicans? Yes.
Okay, so it's just overall for me. It's just
So what is all the what is with all the yelling? I don't understand.
I'm not yelling though. I'm trying to talk, and every time I get interrupted, I just shut up and wait till it quiets down again. So what's adding to the tension, whether you realize it or not, is that there is this visceral defensiveness. And then what happens is, in your visceral defensiveness, you say something that maybe you're not necessarily fully grasping, but sounds ridiculous to everybody else. And so then everybody else viscerally jumps at you because it's like, what do you mean? That sounds ridiculous. And this pattern is the pattern of exchanges that we've had.
It can go ahead and sound ridiculous. I mean, if it sounds ridiculous, it's you're obviously either not listening to what I'm saying, or you're coming from a place of ignorance.
No, because
or just the third one, which is more likely. You're just anti-Dominican.
Let me give you. Hold on. That's what I'm talking.
See, you're
about.
doing it right now. This is what we're talking about.
Why are you getting all defensive for?
You're the one that's
because you're being accusatory.
All defensive for.
You're being accusatory.
Franco's pro hispano. He's not anti-Dominican. We're brothers. He views us as brothers.
Let me be. You're being accusatory. So. Let me give
You're accusing me. You have literally been accused.
Dude, I'm giving you feedback.
That's hilarious.
I'm giving you feedback on your posture and your defensiveness.
Hilarious.
Let him finish.
You're not even letting me finish, dog. You're telling me you're not being defensive.
See, this is war game. We're not getting defensive. The one that's getting defensive is you. But just hear us out, dog.
Listen, people who are gonna watch this, okay?
Okay, so because your tone gets defensive, you can disagree with this when I'm done with my point. Because your tone gets defensive, you usually recoil with some kind of visceral response that you don't qualify. You'll say something like, yeah, Afro-Latinos are not Latinos. And you may mean...
No, I never said that.
You actually...
We're not Hispanos, but you know what we're saying, though.
You actually did say that.
Well, no, say exactly what I say.
No, but you see
Don't just, change it up.
You get the idea, though.
God,
you know what I'm saying?
I still haven't finished my point.
No. You have to say exactly what I say. You can't just say what you think I said.
Buddy.
Yeah, but I'm saying it right now, right? That you said Afro-Latinos are not Hispanic.
Yeah, but it wasn't you. So thank you for explaining. Go ahead.
No, that's what we've been saying.
Okay, here's the point. Because you didn't qualify that statement. So how are we going to know what you mean? You didn't qualify it when you said that statement. You just said it. And then you added, we're talking about a political ideology. But you didn't qualify that statement when you said it. So, again, you automatically enter into a defensive posture when the black subject is touched. Not when the white subject of Dominicans is touched, but when the black subject of Dominicans is touched. And your reaction tends to be visceral, and you don't qualify it. So then we viscerally react to what sounds ridiculous. And you'll observe that in the recording.
To you. Like I said, is Sammy Sosa Dominican? Yes or no?
I don't know.
Yes or no?
I thought he was until you guys
don't know?
made me question it.
You don't know.
I would have said yes. Yes.
But you must know.
I said yes.
He is?
Yes.
No.
He's not.
Explain.
He's not.
Tell us.
Because he's Haitian, of a Haitian extraction.
Yes, he's Haitian. Exactly.
So he's not Dominican.
Haitian. So even if
so, you have to actually know the person you're talking about. You have to actually do research to know. You can't just guess.
Yeah, but the question that was asked to you was, do any real Dominicans look like this man? Do any real Dominicans look like Mr. Nunez?
Like I said,
you don't know.
Like
I've already
said.
I'm not asking, but I'm not asking you this specific.
I'll say it again. I'll say it again. There are black Dominicans.
And do they look like this man?
I have never seen a majority African Dominican that looks like him.
You've never seen them.
They look
so you know that
a little bit different from what I've seen.
So let's zoom out a little bit. And let's step up a bit back and let's reassess the discussion because and I want anybody else to agree or disagree with me here. Just come on in.
You guys can just jump in because I'm literally
hold on.
Give your opinions.
But yeah, so it seems to me like there's a deep rooted shame and denial around the black question. And it seems like that's not the same attitude taken to the other potential roots, Spanish being the primary one, because we have observed that the Taino one is a very small admixture to Dominican people. It just seems like there's a lot of shame and denial. It just seems like there's a lot of shame and denial around the African admixture, whether it's genetic, demographic, or I don't know, culturally. I don't know if, obviously things like the Dominican music are very African mixed, obviously. But yeah, so that's just my observance. It seems like when the subject of is this black Dominican or not, it always seems to get emotional. And so it seems to me like, well, there's just this crazy denial or shame.
Or there's a great misrepresentation of Dominicans.
Let's just address the terms, right, Rancho? Because I think black, especially to our viewers, that's misleading since it's an American term, right? When someone says black, I think about African American.
You think of an African person.
No, I think as African American. But if we say something, dude, you ask an African if African Americans, are the same people. They're not going to claim that.
Still African.
They're African American. They have a different culture. They have a different admixture. They have a Scottish, Anglo.
Doesn't matter. They're still African.
Yes, it does. It makes sense, dude. Literally, just ask any African. Just let me finish my point real quick, all right? ¿Todo bien? Hello?
Yeah. Please go ahead.
Simon? Okay, arre. Look, I think we should say instead of black, right, or just pure African, right? We should say with an African admixture or even mulatto. Just that way we don't confuse our viewers. That's all I was trying to get to. Thank you for letting me finish.
OG, can I just jump in real quick?
Give me 1 sec.
Remember this?
Wait up, Taco. Let me get Alex in the mix because he's about to leave. So, yeah. Alex, if you want to give some final thoughts on the conversation.
Yeah, I just gotta say, it was surreal what I was hearing. I understand where Dominican Renaissance is coming from, but to me, the Spanish identity is not based on race. So, Dominicans could be white, black. I got Lebanese in me. I Chino Dominicano. I can't say who's Dominican, who's not. If they speak Spanish, oye merengue, son Dominicano, they're Dominican to me. I'm not into this bloodline shit. I'm not Donald Trump or a white nationalist, and I'll leave it at that.
Neither am I. The fuck?
All right,
hey guys, let me add something real quick. It's not, there's a lot of terminology. Especially when we speak in English, black totally means African American. That's the first thing anybody will think. That anybody that speaks English. But when we say it in Spanish, imagine saying negro or negro. That would be racist. You know what I'm saying? it is the terminology matters a lot, and we use negro ahí viene el negro, okay. Un moreno, we call it moreno, negro, but we don't use that necessarily for Americans or black Americans or dark-skinned Americans, however they want to identify. Yeah. Also, in African countries, they don't even identify as black. From what I've seen, all the people that I know that are from African countries, they go with their country.
Yeah.
They don't say I'm black. I'll be like, okay, I could see your skin tone. What do you?
they are more like they go towards the country. Oh, I'm from Nigeria. I'm from this. They don't say, oh, I'm black, like Americans.
Yes.
Yeah, that's just ridiculous.
So OG, remember a while back I linked you to a book. It was a dissertation by a sociologist called Edward Byron Reuter, and it's called "The Mulatto in the United States," and it's including a study of and the role of mixed blood races throughout the world. So he goes through, ancient European mixing to all the way to Hispano-America. And he highlights what you're saying, what you're describing, that tension. And he basically says that people who are of mixed blood, they tend to go to one side or the other because they don't fit uniformly into one or the other. But there's something specific between the stigma of having African admixture that makes the mulatto hate the pure African. So like in this case, it would be like a mulatto Dominican would reject completely any association with, say, like the Haitian, even if they say, for instance, shared the same haplotype, maybe for mtDNA or something like that. And there would be a very deep resentment, and this is on a pathological, psychological level, where it's almost to the same extent as somebody who was like, say, like a racist white nationalist, like, you could make that caricature of that person, right? I don't like to paint it in those terms because, sometimes these people just, sticking for their own. But let's just use that caricature for a second. That person who has that disdain for an African would be the same level of disdain that the mulatto has. And it's a very interesting dynamic that it was described in this book. It's his dissertation from 1918, if anyone wants to look it up. But I don't know, you can put your thoughts on that, but I think it falls very well into what we hear with Andy and sometimes with you, Dominican Renaissance. And we're not trying to sneakily be cryptos or whatever and like sneak Haitians into your country or to say give them citizenship or anything like that. We're just commenting on what we see as Hispanos standing from the outside. And it may not be our place to say shit, like you could say it like that. And I mean, that's pretty much the way I get it. And that would be very Dominican of you because like Dominicans have always been just doing their own shit. Like here in New York.
Well, I wouldn't say Dominican. I would say if you talk about any like other Hispanic country and you try to sort of like insert your perception of that your preconceived conceptions of what that country thinks, you're not gonna get a good reaction. That's why I don't do that. That's why I would say a lot of people who talk about these kinds of things don't do that.
I mean, that's fair.
I'm not really going about that though. I'm just going based on the people who I'm interacting with, their specific reactions. See, like I'm just looking at how you're answering me, how you're reacting, how I'm seeing another Dominican reacting and another Dominican reacting. So these are the things that I'm observing. I'm hearing basically that, and I know you didn't say this, but the impression is almost that you're saying that there's no like blacks in the Dominican Republic. And if they
said the complete opposite,
then they're automatically Haitian. Yeah, I understand. We've unpacked it and it's allowed us.
No, you don't. You don't understand because I said the opposite. I said there are black Dominicans. I've said it like 6 times now.
Yeah,
Well, we had to kind of wrestle that out of you though.
I've granted
you didn't wrestle anything out of me.
Dog, see, it's that tone that we've been having all convo, and it's nothing personal.
It's very
but
black,
something
dog.
that
because he literally just misrepresented everything I said.
Dude, I just granted it. I said, yes, we unpacked it and we clarified your position. But your initial answer was, the initial impression you gave was that. And this is not
you're being
just
defensive
my
right now,
impression. This is everybody's impression.
Don't misrepresent what I say then.
My nigga.
Well, that's why we're asking questions, dog. No need for you to get defensive.
How did I misrepresent it?
Misrepresent what I say.
Okay, that's just a vague statement. You misrepresent what you say because you don't qualify your statements. So then you cause a visceral reaction. We all like, what the fuck did this nigga just say? Repeat it or clarify it. We go back and forth a couple times and then we understand your position. But your initial position, the impression you gave was not your clarifying position. So you need to qualify the terms you're using is really the feedback that I'm giving you. But I
have to teach you.
I have to understand you. Do you not understand how proper communication works?
Yeah, but you're making accusations. You have to ask
I'm not,
first.
dude. It feels like
you're making accusations too, calling us anti-Semitic.
But I'm not making accusations, bro. I'm giving you feedback. This is the impression that's made, and I'm not the only crazy one because everyone's telling you the same thing.
I'm not saying you're crazy. I'm saying that I'm not the only misrepresented. We are misrepresented. You have fallen under the confusion of how the Dominican is misrepresented.
Wait, Dominican Renaissance. Wait.
No. Let me listen to that statement. I'm sorry. Repeat that last statement. That I have fallen under the illusion that the average phenotype of Dominicans is wrong. I said the average phenotype of Dominicans is some kind of variation of mulatto. Would you disagree or agree
How
with that
would you
statement?
possibly know that?
It's just my impression. Would you disagree or agree with that statement?
Someone who is black and white.
Some variation of it. So I don't know if you're 1/8 or 1/16 or 1/4 or 1/3. You can tell when someone has black and white admixture. You can't?
Usually, not always.
So would you disagree? Now that I've qualified my definition of mulatto, and I'm making it very wide. It could be 50-50, it could be 70-30, it could be 12-18 and whatever. You understand what I'm saying? To me, the Dominican Republic and most Dominicans are some variation of mulatto. Not all of them, of course. I know that there's white blonde ones, and I had the impression that there's black ones, but you're telling me not really because you've never seen one.
Yeah, you're misrepresenting what I said again.
Did you
I said
not
there
say,
are black Dominicans.
But you've never seen them. And you said you've never seen them.
That's not what I said.
Oh, okay, my bad.
I said the guy he showed me, I haven't seen a black Dominican as you want to, the words you want to use. I haven't seen a black Dominican that looks like that.
Use another term. What would be the Dominican term for that?
I don't have to make up a term for that. They're Dominican.
Okay. So, again, my statement is, you said that I have a misconception of what Dominicans on average look like.
Most people do. Most people do.
But I just said that I believe Dominicans are some variation of mulatto. And I've given you the definition of mulatto, so it doesn't mean different terms for us. Would you agree or disagree with that statement?
You're saying most.
Yes.
Have a mulatto phenotype.
No. I said that most, okay, let me rephrase it. Most Dominicans are an admixture of Spanish and black at various degrees.
Spanish black and Taino, yes.
Yeah, Taino is probably the smallest contributor to the root stocks of Dominicans. Would you agree with that statement? The two main stocks that make Dominicans are Spanish and African. Would you?
Yeah.
Okay. You see what I'm saying? Like, then we're not disagreeing. But it seems like any questions, if it's not so explicit, you have this visceral rejection to it. So you are admitting that the root stock of Dominicans is Spanish and African. And Taino would be the third one. You agree to that statement?
Yeah.
So then what's the beef?
I should be asking you that, actually.
Because my impression is that simple question is like a problem to answer, to accept. From my
for
interactions,
you maybe, but not for me.
From my interactions with you. And I mean, I'll let someone else jump in, but that's been my impression, not just from my interactions with you, but my interactions with Andy have been very much the same.
Well, don't lump in all Dominicans.
Okay,
Like,
I can respect that.
ridiculous.
I can respect that. But that's been my impression. It seems like there's no recognition of that.
How can you assume what somebody thinks? That's ridiculous.
Because I've asked you questions that basically answer that question. And when I've asked you those questions, you seem to avoid or you seem to get defensive regarding those questions. That's why I have that impression of you. I mean, I'm not going to pull this impression out of my ass and force it upon you. It's just the impression you're giving.
This is the first time we're actually talking about this, so I don't see how you could possibly get that idea just from my tweets.
All right. Let's
Wait.
let's go shift over to lo que quiere decir Duarte. And if there's any other Dominican panelists, just so we could get an idea from everyone. Dale, Duarte.
Hey, there we go. I don't like to jump in. I like, like, hey, say the name, and go. But, the first thing I will say is let's not use the American terms. Let's not view this from an American perspective. So I will take away black and white. You know what I'm saying? Those are some terms that I don't really use to identify any Hispanic. I always go with the country. Also, I mean, there's definitely some Afro Dominicans, but I will not say black Dominican. They will say, oh, from African descent, because we gotta the associate with this ideology of blackness and whiteness that is being imposed in society, like the U.S. Look how divided the U.S. is. Like they are the same people to me. They're both Americans. Like I like to call them black gringos and white gringos because that's why they are. But we should not separate our Hispanic communities based on those terms, because then we gotta measure how white are you, how much African do you have with you. Like I got my grandmother was, you say Afro Dominicana, I would say, but I'm more towards the Spanish side. So I mean, I don't want to divide my family. You know what I mean? So yeah.
And that's what I see happening. And this is what I was talking about. Like, you make taboos, you only give power to the other side. And for me, because again, my viewpoint is more of la gran patria. I really do see this as a momento hispano, right? Like, we need to recognize our position in the globe as an ethnicity. It's extremely powerful if we embraced it. But when I see rhetoric that divides us along racial lines and starts, well, let me give you a haplogroup test to see if you're down, then all I see is you dividing our numbers and taking away our demographic power, which is ours right now. So I do get pissed off, because you're just all you're doing is serving our enemies by, in a sense, dividing us up and taking our soldiers down. And now our soldiers are going to be given to them.
We're not deciding policy in Latin America. When we talk about, I'm a Dominican nationalist. I'm not a Hispanic nationalist. When I talk about things that relate to my country, I'm talking about only my country.
Yeah,
I mean,
but you have this your country doesn't exist in a vacuum. Like, you need to understand that your country is extremely arbitrary, as are all Latin American countries. It's like a Mason decided and drew the lines. Like, these countries don't exist. These countries are provinces of an empire that once existed.
That's your opinion.
No, that's not my opinion. That's historical fact.
That's just your opinion, dude.
No, it's not my opinion. It's historical fact.
You need to understand that not everyone is going to agree with you.
I don't need everyone to agree with me. This isn't my opinion. This is historical fact. Your country isn't a real country. It's a province of a bigger. It's like Yugoslavia was a country, right? And this is not the best example, because these are actual ethnic groups with religious and language differences, but it still communicates the point that the new states of what was the Yugoslav Republic are provinces of this bigger nation. So when you're saying this position, well, I'm just talking about Dominican Republic, yeah, but your conversation, because you exist in an Hispano context, affects the rest of Hispanos. It adds to tensions that, again, our enemies are pushing down there to divide our numbers, because the demographic situation is intimidating. So I can respect that you don't have that high level thinking, but you need to like wake up and realize that.
Well, no,
they
I'm just
do
a Dominican nationalist. I never claimed to be a Hispanic nationalist.
Yeah, I know, but Dominican
all my
Republic,
videos are on things relating to
it.
Dominicans.
But the Dominican
Republic, for maybe like
I respect that.
one or two.
But the Dominican Republic doesn't exist in a vacuum. That's what you're failing to see. So what I'm opening
to be.
Listen, even if you were to even try to get like Hispanics to unite, like you're going about it entirely the wrong way, because I guarantee you, every country is going to have things that you disagree with.
Yeah.
Every country.
Well, that's
if we can't even agree that Haitians aren't Dominicans, you got a long fucking way to go.
But we.
You see,
but we never
who's
said
putting?
Haitians.
Wait. The problem is that we shouldn't be.
Who said that?
I don't. The notion that, let's not say that. Yeah, sure. Dominican Republic and all our republics are artificial republics. Sure, we know that, but that doesn't mean we need to. That doesn't mean we need to work within our nations to work for the construction within the structure of our nations. You know, that doesn't mean we should dilute our nations in sort of this pan-Hispanic identity. You know, because I don't think Dominican Renaissance is against a Hispanic Antillean or union. I don't think it's against that.
Yeah,
you know, and because especially like the ideology of Dominican nationalism has always been sort of connected with Latin America, you know. The Dominican Republic never had this sort of like exceptionalism that Argentina had, you know what I mean? Because Argentinians actually said that, oh, we're not South Americans, we're Europeans. That was actually an ideology, especially by Argentinian liberals like Sarmiento, right? But Dominican Republic never had that. The Dominican nationalism has always been in connection with Spain, with Gran Colombia, with everything of with Latin America,
with a greater entity. But here's the part of the praxis of all this is to have these discussions so that we can understand the difference in definitions and terms, so we can understand the context. That's the whole point. I'm not here dictating what the situation is. It's just, I'm very blunt. Is there African admixture in the Dominican Republic? Is it the second most preeminent admixture? Yes. Why sometimes it seems like that answer is so hard? I mean, that's just, again, but that's just my feedback. Well, again,
I mean,
the whole point of this is to have that conversation.
I want to bring back a discussion that Dominican Renaissance had with the Africans and the Afrocentrics in Tina's Tina's podcast. You're right. You remember Dominican Renaissance when the Afrocentric people were asking you, where do Dominicans come from? And you said Spain, and you constantly say Spain and Spain.
Where do they come from?
I mean,
they come from a mixture of Spanish,
African,
and
no,
Dino.
but like what country do they come from? Because they weren't on the island before, so where do they come from?
Yeah, but they also didn't come from somewhere. There was a mixture of three things that made them.
Mainly African and Spanish.
Yeah, in the Dominican Republic. Or what we have today as Dominicans.
The Africans did not call themselves Dominicans.
But the Africans mixed with the Spanish to create Dominicans.
The Spanish did.
You're not listening.
You're not listening.
Are Dominicans a mix of Spanish and African?
Wait. I want to go to Dominican history right now. So, there was a rupture between being Dominican and being Spaniard in the mind of Juan Pablo Duarte, actually. And Juan Pablo Duarte didn't have this exclusivist definition of Dominican. He didn't say, oh, Dominicans are just white Dominicans. No. So the Dominican nation as a national construction, not as a part of not as a province of an empire. The Dominican nation, as a national construction, was a rupture with the sense of being a Spaniard. You know what I mean? Because that was Juan Pablo Duarte. You read his poetry. He says, vamos a oponer la cruz hispana o la cruz española a la cruz dominicana. And the same thing happened with Gregorio Luperón, who was in the independence in the battle of restoration in that war. So there is a rupture between being a Spaniard in the sense of nationhood and being a Dominican. You know what I mean? You know what I mean, Dominican Renaissance?
Can you repeat that last part?
But there is a rupture between being a Dominican and being a national Dominican and from the Dominican nation and being a Spaniard. You know what I mean?
You're saying there's a difference?
Yes, there is a difference because I'm talking about Juan. I'm talking about Juan.
Yeah.
But when you say that, so why are you excluding why you're saying that Dominicans
you asked me,
come from Spain?
Look, the question was, where do Dominicans come from?
They don't come from Spain. They come
You're
from
asking
a mixture.
me where they come from.
Yeah, where do
They
come
also
from?
come from
Now let's
Spain.
look
They
at the
also
Dominican Republic.
Just answer the question. Where
It's
do they
a
come
country
from?
of majority mixed race people, right?
So where do they come from?
Yeah.
So we want to know where they come from. Let's go back. All right, now they're not mixed, right? So now we have the slaves, we have the Spanish, and most of the Tainos are extinct, right? Let's go even further back. Now you have the slaves, the Africans in Africa. You have the Spanish and the Taino conflict, right? Before the Tainos went extinct. Let's go further back. Now we're talking about Spanish people in Spain.
Yeah, and those aren't Dominicans. Those are Spanish. But as long as they haven't come to Hispaniola, fought the Tainos, mixed with the Tainos that left, brought in African slaves, and mixed with African slaves to the point where there's more African mix than Indian mix, then you have Dominicans. So,
Well, that's not what the question was. It wasn't what are Dominicans today. The question was, where do Dominicans come from?
Yeah, where do they come from? You're saying that they come from Spain. Where in Spain are the Dominicans from? Where are they from? Where in Spain?
Southern Spain.
There's a Dominican Republic in southern Spain?
The Dominican Republic is different from Dominican at that time. The country did not exist at that time, but they called themselves Dominican and they came from Spain.
I'm gonna head out, guys, but I just wanted to say real quick, thanks for joining this conversation. I think it's important that, we all have this conversation. To me, knowing Dominicans, I've seen y'all as mi hermanos, hispanos, pero ustedes son más morenitos que yo, just like I would see, un indio de Mexico que es más indio que yo, right? So, but at the end of the day, you're still Hispanic to me, and, the contributions of, Dominican Republic to La Hispanidad being the first place that people came to, is pretty important. And hopefully you guys can work out the rest to come to something about how we can cooperate together, whether it's trade, whether it's an ideological union, or, maybe even a political one at some point, based on this shared history that we do have, rather than getting caught up in the what's what of the definition. That's just my last 2 cents, which is, I think, what we're all trying to get at with this conversation. So,
yeah. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So let me
Peace out, guys.
Peace, bro. Thank you, Taco. Have a good one. Let me loop back to what you said. So Dominicans existed before the Dominicans landed in Hispaniola?
Yeah.
Are you talking about the Dominican Catholic order?
Yes.
But that's a Catholic order. That's not an ethnicity or sub-ethnicity or nationality or region. That's not a people. That's not a Dominican.
No, but
people.
that's what they were called.
Yeah, but that's what. How relevant?
That's where it comes from.
They were called Dominicos.
This is not.
That's
but this is
the
not a
origin.
discussion about etymology, bro. We're talking about the ethnogenesis of the Dominican
That's
people.
the origin.
Okay, thank you for the origin of the word Dominican. I believe it means dog.
People
God.
called Dominicans.
Oh my God, my name.
That's what I was asked. That's the answer that I gave.
Buddy.
It was a thorough answer.
Let me give
Are you not satisfied?
Let me rephrase the question for you. Because that's honestly sophistry what you're using. But let me rephrase the question for you. Dominicans, not the Dominican friars, not the order. I'm talking about people, the ethnos, the ethnoi of Dominicans. Correct? Where do they come from?
They come from Africa, Europe, the Middle East, Asia.
Where do they come overwhelmingly from? What are the two root stocks?
Overwhelmingly,
Yes.
Europe and Africa.
Okay, so when you said that Dominicans come from Spain, without qualifying what you meant by Dominicans, because here we're talking about the people and you're talking about an order of monks. So let's.
Well, I mean, where the word actually what it actually means.
Yeah, but you never said the word.
Like not what you think it means.
Yeah, but
like what it actually.
Well, again, Bobby, you
means.
didn't qualify that. You see, you didn't say I'm talking about Dominican the word. You never said etymology. The conversation isn't about etymology.
I don't have to say that. You have to know the terms that you're using.
I guess you don't know how communication works. The whole point of communication is to make the other person.
I have to define every word before I use it.
If you're going to define it in a context that clearly is not the context of the conversation. So the conversation is about people and ethnogenesis.
No, you just don't like the answer.
Okay, buddy, we're going in circles here. We're talking about the Dominican people clearly, correct? So now we're asking about the Dominican people. I didn't know I had.
We're talking about history.
We're talking about ethnogenesis. We're talking about the Dominican people. Do they come from Spain? Is that still your statement? Do the Dominican people...
You're asking about the modern Dominican.
I am talking about the Dominican ethnoi. Ethnoi.
The ethnicity, Dominican.
Yes. Do they come from Spain?
They come from, and Africa and the Middle East and...
Okay, got it. So you see how that is different from what you said earlier? Because earlier you weren't talking about the people. Earlier you were talking about...
I'm very specific.
No, you're not, dude.
Yeah, I am.
I'm sorry. Okay, well, we'll let the listeners...
I'm pretty sure everyone here has noticed that by now. I'm very literal.
I don't see how saying Dominicans come from Spain when you're referring to the Catholic order...
beginning.
But we get that we're not talking about the Catholic order. We were talking about the Dominican people.
The people that were called Dominican, which come from where?
Are you referring to Dominican monks from St. Dominic? That's not what we're talking about, though, dog.
Saying that.
But that is the answer you're giving. What
were they referred as? The people that were called Dominican on Hispaniola, what were those people?
Are you talking about the Dominican
Those people
friars?
Were Spanish.
But I'm not talking about those people, and you know I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about Dominicans.
That's fine. I know it's not the answer
so
you wanted.
Why are you being
but
a
that's
fucking
the
sophist?
Correct answer.
You see how, dude?
That's not the answer you wanted. But that's the correct answer.
But that's such a black tactic in reaction. Like you're being a sophist, and
that's kind of racist.
I don't care if it's racist. I don't have a problem being racist. It's true. It's like, dude, you know what we're talking about, and like you're being a smart aleck.
Why do you always have to do like personal attacks? Jesus.
I'm just giving you personal feedback, bro. It's the angle you're taking. You know we're talking about the Dominican people, but you're giving me an answer about
when
Dominican.
You don't get the answer you want. You do that all the time.
Because it's a straightforward question. If you don't dance around it with your technicalities,
I'm not a straightforward guy. I'm a very meticulous person.
You just said you're straightforward. Wait, you're not a straightforward guy. You're very meticulous. How does that even make sense? Those are two of the same things.
Very specific, dude.
But you didn't specify when you said Dominican friars. You're talking about a Catholic order. We're talking about the Dominican people.
I said, look, there is a Catholic order. That's where the name comes from. However,
that's not what you said, my nigga.
When they came to the island, those Spanish people were called Dominicans.
Cool. Thanks for the fucking fact of history. Can we go back to the conversation about the Dominican people? And
that is the conversation.
No, nigga, that's called etymology. We're talking about ethnology. You're talking about the root of a word, the history of a word. I'm talking about the ethnogenesis of a people.
I was asked where they come from. They come from Spain.
Who's they?
They
Who is
intermixed.
The they? Who is the they?
They intermixed, and that is the population we have today. But I was asked, where do they come from?
And they come from Spain.
Wait, Dominican Renaissance.
That's like saying where do Americans come from? Let's go back.
Americans come from England because Americans.
Ireland.
Well, yeah, they come from Britain because
Italy.
They didn't intermix. You see, no, those
come from a lot. They come from Europe. They come from different places.
Oh my god, man!
There is no such
Dude,
thing
you're
as
so
an American.
fucking funny, dog. I can't believe you're breaking this down to somehow avoid the straight. You're making a straightforward question complicated.
No, I'm clarifying because you don't understand.
I don't understand that the overwhelming stock of most Dominicans is Spanish and African. I don't have.
No, you don't understand how I'm explaining what I'm explaining.
Why is it so hard for you to say that? Why do you have to go in through all these tangents to just admit that Dominicans are a mix of Spanish and African?
It's not hard. I do it all the time.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. That's not the feedback. That's not the perception I have. But I'll let someone else talk for now.
I mean, we're having this. You remember the reaction that the Afrocentrics had towards you that time, right?
Towards me?
Yeah, because you were going in circles just as now, and you need to constantly clarify, and then you say, no, I'm a very meticulous person, right? Like, you know what we're talking about. And those persons, those people knew what you were talking about as well.
They don't know anything about Dominicans.
I'm sure they're very stupid.
They don't know a single thing about Dominicans. They don't know anything, actually.
But at the same time, when we say where does Dominicans come from, and you say Spain, well, you know exactly that we're expecting the.
I don't know what you're expecting.
We're expecting to say that Dominicans are a mix between Africans and
I don't know what you're
that's the answer.
What you're expecting me to say.
That's the answer.
That's your answer. That's not my answer.
Okay. Okay, sure. I mean, when we say when we talk about where the Dominicans come from, we're talking about the ethnic group of Dominican Republic.
All right. Well, I'm thinking, what does it mean? Because when you look at a word, you have to look, because words change over time, right?
But again, you're making a discussion about etymology. This is not a discussion about etymology. How
words change over time.
I think we're not stupid, Dominican Renaissance.
I'm not saying you're stupid. This is how
I know you're not saying that, but
I understand my argument. This is how I understand my argument.
Okay.
Ay, Dios. Okay.
It's okay. I mean, I don't think we be fair. I think we agree in essential points. You know what I mean? I
don't know. I want to say yeah. I mean, if a Haitian starts fighting with Dominican Renaissance, I'm gonna go fight for Dominican Renaissance. But much beyond that, like, fuck, dude, I'm really trying here, but I don't know. I just feel like this whole thing just went exploded all over directions, and I don't even know where we are anymore. And the perception is Dominican Renaissance doesn't really care about like a greater Hispano identity, which is fine. I don't need more friends than I have.
I think he cares. I think he cares. He was just being defensive in that situation. I mean, he has a video which is talking about Latin American Union. You know what I mean?
Wasn't that like one of the first people to do that?
I would say that.
No, exactly. Yeah. I don't think we should accuse the Dominican Renaissance of going against that. But
I've heard him say many times, "I don't care." Outside of my country, I don't care. Well, how am I supposed to?
Well, it's not that I don't care. It's not my business.
Okay, that's a sophist way of turning it around.
Well, it's not selfish. It's just not my business.
Sophist.
People wouldn't want to find out about, these guys are
sophist,
like,
word trickery.
Policy in my country. Like, people generally don't like that.
Yeah, but I said sophist.
You can share ideas and stuff, and, maybe we should try that, but...
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what else to say. It seems like
it's just a question of nationalism, that strong nationalism. But I don't think nationalism necessarily excluded. There's if it goes in retarded mode, it's going to do it. But if it's intelligent, nationalism is not going to exclude a possible union. And I think like precisely Dominican nationalists, that was the thing in mind, every time, every historical period. Juan Pablo Duarte, Núñez de Cáceres, Gregorio Luperón.
Have you read any of these guys? Let me ask a question. Have you read any of those guys this guy just listed off?
Could you say their names again?
I was referring to the idea of Dominican Republic as a national construction.
Yeah, but what are the name of the writers? What are the name of the writers? Duarte?
I was talking about Juan Pablo Duarte, Gregorio Luperón. I mean, even Pedro Santana. They always thought of Dominicanidad as inscribed in this sort of larger identity. So even Dominican nationalists did that. Even Balaguer did that.
Have you read, Have you read any of those Dominican thinkers or writers?
I don't remember, but
is there a Dominican writer that you like and you would recommend to us?
I would suggest this, because when I look for information on Dominican stuff, I just look for very specific information.
Okay, so
I'm not like some deep reader, like going through all these different literatures of like, I don't even have the time to do that, honestly. But when I want to find out something, I just I look for that specific thing.
So you don't necessarily have a Dominican intellectual formation. It's more like facts-based statistics and maybe dates, but you don't have like a cohesive.
Most of my
synthesis.
ideas I get from Dominican nationalists.
Like who?
I just
Can you
basically
name some of them?
Regurgitate it in English.
Can you name some of them?
There's Dr. Roberto Cabral. That I could think of at the top of my head. I would say him.
Okay, so that's the only one.
Like, there are people that I follow. There's stuff that I read a lot of stuff, like on social media. Like I said, I'm not like this big, I'm not like super heavy on books. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have the time to read books.
Yeah.
Well, in my case, I'm also Dominican, and I think
you're not really Dominican. Wait. You're not really Dominican.
I mean, yeah.
You're Venezuelan. You didn't fight in their battles.
I'm sure I had some ancestors that fight in their battles.
I'm being facetious.
There's being facetious. Myth in my family that Núñez de Cáceres was part of my blood or something like that. But that may be true or that may be a myth. I don't know what to say. But
it's just a joke. I was just being facetious.
No, yeah, I know. But I will recommend Manuel Núñez. He's an Hispanista. He's very he's sort of this culmination of Dominican nationalism as an ideology. He's like the Dominican. Is the Dominican nationalism or the 21st century? You know what I mean?
But is he black?
Does he talk
Black?
about?
Yeah, is he black?
Does he talk about the
Is he
Asian
African?
immigration issue?
Absolutely, he's the most. Yes, absolutely.
Because that's the main issue, I think.
El Ocaso, his main book, El Ocaso de la Nación Dominicana, that's basically it. He's talking about how Haitians are de-Dominicanizando the Dominican Republic. That's his main issue there. So
You said Manuel Gomez?
Manuel Núñez.
Manuel Núñez.
Besides him, I will recommend people like Balaguer, although he had some weird racist. Yeah, but he also had like weird racist points. But besides that, he's an interesting person. Peña Batel is also an interesting Dominican writer, and not necessarily nationalist, but if Dominicans with a pan-Hispanic goal. I think Pedro Enriquez Ureña, he was fundamental in the life of Vasconcelos, in the life of Borges. You know. He founded with Borges El Ateneo in Mexico. So yeah, I mean, Dominican Republic has actually had very interesting and very great intellectuals and writers.
Yeah, I'm really interested in actually taking those apart. Again. Thanks for sharing that.
Juan Bosch, even if he was sort of this lefty figure, Juan Bosch is also a great writer in Dominican Republic history.
I like that. I like that you took those apart. I'd like to do some homework on that, and maybe we can expand in upcoming episodes on some of these thinkers, because Dominican Renaissance, I don't know. I feel like maybe you need a more deeper intellectual foundation to really give you deeper views, because one thing is just pulling facts and numbers and statistics or history dates, but you need to be able to synthesize all this stuff and understand it in a cohesive fashion, like inside, outside, left and right, up and down.
I understand the Dominican identity.
Yeah, but I'm talking about more.
I would say it's foreigners
formation.
that have a problem understanding it.
Well, you might not like this feedback, but if you might understand it, but you don't seem the very best at communicating it and sharing it, because clearly all of us have had a hard time really understanding what you mean. We do understand after we wrestle around terms, but I don't know if it's a communicational style thing, but I don't see how it would hurt you as a Dominican nationalist to verse yourself in Dominican nationalist intellectual thought.
I look into what I have time to look into. Okay.
You're a busy nationalist. I get it.
I'm very busy. There are a lot of other nationalists in the country who will probably say the same thing, just like different words or whatever. You know, you can ask them too what they think, or
we will. I'm gonna have to wrap this up because I gotta get going. But I've had a pleasure discussing with you and everybody else who shared. Duarte, Alex, thank you, Haniel, obviously always. If you guys want to say some final notes, closing, I open it up to you.
I just want to say that Dominican Republic has been the most Hispanophilic nation in Latin America historically. Their writers, their thinkers, they always thought of themselves of this larger Hispanic part of this larger Hispanic identity, and that's it. I mean, I understand the sort of this reaction towards blacks that Dominican Renaissance has, because it makes sense. Dominican Republic, the people that always want to highlight blackness, they usually had this sort of this pan-Haitian ideology. They want to unite Dominican Republic with Haiti, and that's true. That's a fact, and I understand that. But at the same time, his forms are complicated to understand sometimes.
Dominican Renaissance, do you want to give some final thoughts?
Yeah. I just think that there are a lot of misconceptions about, all kinds of countries, like all over the world. And, before really trying to, you know, give an opinion on something, I think it's always good to do some research, even just a little bit, before making accusations and not to assume things because that's literally what's splitting this country apart.
Okay. Anything in regards to the Dominican Republic in the greater Hispano context that you'd like to touch on, maybe for future conversations?
Yeah, I mean, if people are interested in learning about the Dominican Republic, there's literature out there that you can look into. You might have a better understanding if you look at the history of what I'm talking about. You might have a better understanding. And, words matter. And I think we need to be more specific with the words we use as to not cause more confusion on the matter that is already incredibly confusing of the Latin American identities.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I appreciate your time. And I think
Likewise,
we can keep this conversation going moving forward. I'm sure we'll come back to this subject. Thank you, man.
maybe. All right, no problem.